Oh, right. There it is. And we're in. All right, cool.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Hmm. Doesn't that just get you going, Tom? No, Tom! That's not a good way to start. I'm sure he'll be right back, guys. We'll get him back in. But doesn't that just get you guys going? Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, welcome to Wednesday, Hump Day. And you got to love it. If you guys made it this far, it's not too much farther. We can get into to the rest of the week. But there he is. Let's get him back in here. How about no? No, Tom. All right, guys. Well, we're having all kinds of technical difficulties. We'll get that worked out in the background. I'm sure it'll work out. But yeah, what was I saying? Freaking hump day, guys. So if you guys made it this far, then do we got him? Do we got him? There he is. I was asking you, doesn't that just give you a freedom boner, dude? Doesn't that just get you
Yes,
ready to
it
go?
does.
Heck
Hulk
yeah.
Hogan, man. Dude, I was a kid when that came out. That was one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it, man. Gotta love it. But
When he's going
anyway,
against the Iron Sheik.
yes. Yeah,
Dude, the Sheik's career, just think about the Sheik's career. He comes to the United States. He starts wrestling in the late 60s, early 70s. Then
right.
the hostage crisis takes hold. Then you've got the first Gulf War. And then right after that, you've got G1. His whole career was made on American foreign diplomacy.
Right. And well, and he was like the bad guy, right? Like he had that lane just like carved out for him.
Oh yeah, he had those
Yeah.
Aladdin boots and the
Yeah.
uh, the little head thing that he wore, and those Persian bats that he would use.
Nice. I believe they call that a shamaug. It's either shamaug or a
Oh, sure.
turban. I don't know which one. I don't know. That's the age before me. When I started watching wrestling, it was The Rock, The Undertaker, like those guys were starting to take over. Triple H maybe. But I never really was a wrestling kid. My dad was the pastor, right? My mom, like, she hated it. She thought it was of the devil. And she was like, definitely don't let the kids watch wrestling because then they get all worked up and they don't go to bed. Then they're doing that in their bedroom at night because I had two younger brothers. So, but anyway, guys, I don't know what's going on with the view count up here in the main because it's saying there's 0, but I'm looking over here in the studio and I can see that there's 20 of you guys in there and you guys are trickling in. So, don't know what's going on tonight. Maybe it's the solar flare, Tom. I know that we've had solar storms that are building up this year, and there are
Three
just
Eye
times,
Atlas, bro.
yeah, just times the studio just gets like super wonky and things just stop communicating. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? The electromagnetic poles are shifting. The solar storms are starting. The end of the world is upon us, and it's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. That's about the way that I'm going into it. You might as well grin and bear it, dude, and just smile and have fun along the way. But anyway, doing just a little bit of an intro. First of all, thank you all you guys that are hanging out here with us at the Check Fire on a Wednesday night. Hope you guys are having a good week. We're going to try and get you over this hump day and get you on into the weekend. As you can see, the big bad boss man, Brandon, is still out. Actually, I did get an update from him earlier tonight. If you guys are interested, he and his family made it home safe from the trip that they were on. So throw a little bit of love in the chat for Brandon and let him know that you guys are praying for him. And also, like I said, Brandon, it's so good to have you back and have you home. And he will be back on. We're actually recording tomorrow night. Guest that we're looking forward to, and then he'll be back on the live fire on Friday night, back in the captain's chair at the helm where he belongs, where we will continue this Kobayashi Maru that is I Came with Fire podcast, because that's what it feels like most of the time. But here with me tonight, and Tom, I'll just let you go ahead and introduce yourself because I know we've done a podcast with you before. Huge friend of the channel, but I definitely don't want to misrepresent you in how you want to introduce yourself. So take it away, man.
Well, my name's Tom Cunningham, and for the last 30 years, I've produced, directed, and have been a cameraman on a multitude of reality shows. And I would say pretty much my entire career, I had one foot in sort of the conspiracy world and the other foot kind of like trying to just discount conspiracies and been trying to poke holes in them. But I would say about 2015 or so, that's when it started to take hold, and I started putting the pieces together and seeing this gigantic playboard that we're all pawns in.
But even a pawn can take out a king. Do you still believe that?
I don't know, man. I'm getting to the point now where I've got some serious reservations. I just actually, before coming on, I was just looking at an article about how the U.S. is now going to require it's a bill and it hasn't been voted on yet, but there's going to be a new TSA requirement for foreigners coming into the U.S. where the TSA is going to screen 5 past years of all your social media postings.
Are they really? And what do
Yeah.
you think that they would be looking for? I
Oh,
wonder.
it's just something to protect us. But this is how the slippery slope happens. Like I've said, I started my career. I was always on location, so I was always flying. So I started my career pre September 11th, and things were
Right.
totally different. You just would like sail through security. I remember going to the gate to meet people that were coming in because you'd meet them at the gate, walk with them
Right.
down to baggage claim. Yeah. And then of course, after September 11th, things just got nutty. And what I'm realizing now, it was all a part of this compliance routine that the government wanted us all to go through under the guise of security. And so now this is just the next step into this digital prison that we're putting around all of us.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, because we talked about the real ID thing last week and I brought it up, guys, this was the dude that I was talking about in the background. And when I started going through those micro numbers on the back of my Wisconsin state driver's license, and I was like, hold on, there's something to this. And this was the guy that I called. And I'm like, hey, and we compared driver's license. I'm like, do yours have these? He was like, no, but then you found micro numbers on yours. And you're like, hold on. And then that's where like we went down the rabbit hole and I found out that all 50 states now are real ID compliant if you get a driver's license or a state ID. So we got drug into that one, kicking and screaming, whether we liked it or not.
Right.
Not even kicking and screaming. We got led into it blindfolded.
Oh, it's like everything else we get led into blindfolded. It's always the
But,
fine print. It's just like every time that you click onto a website.
yeah, exactly. But anyway,
Who's reading terms and conditions?
right. TLDR, I accept. You're like, well, they got you because it says down in here in the fine print, can sacrifice your oldest child if you're like, whoa, hold on, didn't catch that one. Flew right by me. But anyway, we are off to the races. Let me go ahead and get like the whole intro thing over with, guys. If you've been watching for the last several weeks, you know that we've been saying, or I've been telling you, Brandon and I talked behind the scenes, and we were thinking that the live streams were getting like a little too overproduced and started kind of feeling like a late night bro version of like The View. Not that's not a fair way to say it, but it was starting to get a little like Crowder-esque, where it's like we have all these things that we deep researched and then we were presenting this deep dive on stuff. And Brandon, he told me, he was like, that's what the podcast was supposed to be. It was supposed to be deep dive research, conspiracies, awesome conversations with high thinking people taking on big problems. And he's like, that's where I want to spend my time deep researching. And when we looked at the time that we were spending here in the live stream, it's like, dude, we're spending like 10 to 12 hours doing research for this alone. So we decided that we were going to make the live stream a lot more laid back, a lot less rigid, a lot more involved with the chat, which I see you guys in here. Again, don't worry about the view count here on the screen. I don't know what's going on with that. I can see everybody that's hanging out in here. And a couple of things that I want to tell you based on the way that the show is shifted is any Rumble rant that you guys drop in the chat at all throughout the show will get pulled up on the screen. It will get interacted with all the way down to $1. It doesn't matter. And so if you want to be a part of the conversation, if you don't like what we're talking about, you want to introduce another topic or something like that, put it on the screen. We'll pull it up. You'll be a part of the conversation. We're not going to do it tonight because it's a check fire, but of course on the Friday nights when we get to the comment section, then we open the phone lines and you guys can call in and be a part of the show that way. But just letting you guys know that. And then, of course, before we really shoot the starting gun here, got to let you guys know to go check out our sponsors. We've got, obviously, Honor Tribe Outdoors. Huge fans of those guys. Kill Cliff Energy, The Light Sleeper, Redefine Violence. Definitely go give those guys a look. Check them all out. Kill Cliff, great energy drinks. Redefine Violence, awesome merch, awesome t-shirts and things like that. And Honor Tribe Outdoors, if you are a vet, active duty guy, or you know a vet or an active duty guy, these guys are working to help vets find their mission again and get them back into the outdoors so that they can rediscover their tribe, rediscover purpose. And we're really trying to take on that 22 a day. You've heard about the 22 a day thing, right, Tom?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, that statistic it's coming out is highly, highly underreported, and it's actually a lot more than that. So that's a thing that's very near and dear to our hearts, and we definitely want to help our brothers out. And like I said, you don't have to be a vet, even if you know a vet, go check those guys out and get them involved over there. And even though Redefined Violence makes some awesome merch, you know who else, guys, makes some awesome merch? We do here at the show. So if you guys do need to absolutely piss off your coworkers at work, we've at least had one awesome member of the Fire Fam that's already gotten her entire department unallowed to wear shirts that have political logos on them because she was wearing, I think this one, Tom. It's the Things That Do Not Exist shirt. And obviously, I'm not sure about Bigfoot. I'm not sure about aliens, demons, or ghosts, but trans kids, I know for a fact trans kids don't exist. So, but anyway, guys, the Teddy Roosevelt, absolutely awesome. Here's the OG. I do like the G wash down with the red coats up with the petticoats. Absolutely classic. And then we've been saying this for this. This is our unofficial motto here, guys. Citizenship is not passive. Get involved and do something. All right. So that's all the plugs out of the way up top. And because I am still working for Uncle Sam, anybody that doesn't know me, obviously, my name's Chris. I'm a Green Bay medic, a husband, and a father, if you're new around here. And I am legally required to practice this communist struggle session in front of you every single time that I get on screen. So it's just a thing, Tom. We have to do it. So this is what it looks like. Yep. Any and all opinions that you hear here on this channel belong completely and totally to the hosts and the guests. They do not represent the United States Army, the Department of War, or any other entity within the United States government. We have been disclaimed. We can now say anything we want. And hey, roly poly oly, thanks for the follow. That's awesome. Welcome in. Go check out the Discord server, which our chatbot Lauren Bobot will be scrolling, and jump in there and hang out with us because I'm going to be doing this, guys. When we get to the comment section, you guys complained that I wasn't looking in the Discord enough and pulling out your suggestions for content. So from now on, when we get to the comment section, I'm going to pull up the Discord server and see the kind of stuff that you want us to talk about. But that being said, if you're new around here, we're going to kick around some topics here at the top. And they're what Brandon and I typically want to talk about because it's our show and we talk about whatever the hell we want. After that, we're going to hit some headlines. And I've got some specifically for Tom tonight because you work in the entertainment industry. And I actually want to know some things. I want you to educate me from the benefit of your experience. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We get through all of that, guys. We have the no-knock breakdown. We do have one tonight. If you're hanging out over on YouTube, that's the point where we're going to politely vote you off the island because YouTube doesn't like violence or guns or patriotism or really anything like that. So from that point on, if you want to hang out with us, you're going to have to come on over to Rumble where we can actually say anything we want to say because Rumble's, the cool kid. He's the kid in the corner of the lunchroom that everybody knows is quasi dangerous, but it's because he's new and he just moved there and everybody wants to hang out with him. That's kind of Rumble right now. He's the new kid in the lunchroom, right? And they're like, oh, I heard he moved here from South Africa. Whatever the case may be. Anyway,
Rumble's the Eddie Barone. Eddie Barone was the kid at my school that was like that.
You knew who I was talking about.
Oh yeah,
exactly. And then if we get through all that, guys, the rest of the show is going to be of you, by you, and for you because will then be into the comment section. But with that, Tom, I got a series of video clips that I want to show you and just kind of get your take on them here up top during the kick around. So first, I would like to jump back over to Mogadishu, USA, or Minnesota, as it were. We were talking over the last few shows about kind of the situation that's going on over there. I think it's very interesting that, first of all, I know there's an optics game. I know that there's narratives that are being played back and forth from the right, from the left. And really, it's just a large game of like, here's the spotlight. Pay attention to this right now, please. And so the right has kind of settled onto their, hey, deport Somalis because of this fraud case, which is coming up and out of Minnesota. But a couple shows ago, I went back and I showed everybody that this did not just creep up out of the ether. They've been trying these cases since back in 2022. And as early as 2020, they knew that they were going on. It's just it became politically expedient for the right to seize on it. And I think Trump found his thing to get off of the whole like H-1Bs or whatever. And he had to find an immigration issue where he could get back on top of things. And I think, by the way, not inappropriately, but I think that he settled on this narrative, and I think it's working very good for him. So all that being said, checking in on Minnesota, I do think it was interesting. What's the dude's name? Professor Quirrell over there, as it were, Ilhan Omar with the turban. What is she hiding under there? Don't know. I'm pretty sure it's Voldemort. But she went on the Sunday shows, and she actually got asked some questions about the fraud and what's going on over there. And this was her take on it. And so I'd like you to watch this one.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy,
Can you hear that okay,
Stephen
Tom?
Miller, said.
Yeah.
Word.
On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis
reaches in her bag of goodies, pulls out All Reliable.
In Germany.
There we go.
As we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back.
There you go, Colts Walker.
One of them
Thanks for letting me know.
Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Thoughts, Tom?
Well, what jumped out at me when at the top of that clip is Margaret's question, because she throws in Stephen Miller because she's actually asking a legit question, but Margaret knows if she throws in Stephen Miller, then the story will become about Stephen Miller in Elon's response, and that's exactly what she did. So Margaret's trying to portray herself as being a journalist and not a propagandist or an advocate for the left or the new Communist Party, by portraying the fact that she has a thought-provoking question that she's going to ask her, but she poisons the well on purpose by saying Stephen Miller's name.
No, 100%. Now, I do think it's funny. This is the low-hanging fruit that everybody's going to, right? Ilhan Omar checks notes, old reliable. He's a Nazi. Right, just goes straight to it, and everybody knows it's the first person to pull out, call you a Nazi, a racist, a Hitler, a bigot, whatever. They're losing the argument. Now, putting aside the fact that Stephen Miller is Jewish, which I thought was pretty funny, and I don't know if Ilhan Omar knows that.
Right. Because in her response, she was like, this is the type of Nazi rhetoric that was used against the Jews. And it's like, okay, do you not know? But I think for the people who are on the left who just want some kind of validation in their opinions and their thoughts, they don't care. They just hear the last name Miller and they're like, oh, of course, German, Nazi.
And, it literally took me actually. So to be fair, and I have to give credit where credit's due because we always bring the receipts around here. I didn't know. I was showing my wife the videos that I have teed up for tonight. My wife goes, "That's really funny saying that Stephen Miller's a Jew." And I was like, "No, he's not." And she goes, "Yeah." And it literally took me 2 seconds. It's like, "Oh yeah, he is very Jewish." Dude is matzo ball Jewish. But anyway, that putting that aside, and no hate for him on that. I just think it's funny. So that's you heard the new, and thanks for pointing out the like how the journalist teed up the question, because it's like we're always trying to break through the propaganda here, and it's important to see how they weave that rhetoric.
Yeah, that's one of the best tricks that they have is they'll come up with a question, but they'll attribute a quote to somebody within the Trump campaign or the Trump administration, or somebody who is a counter to whatever argument they're going into. So if you ever
Right.
hear a journalist quoting somebody directly, you know who is at odds with the position that they're about to ask. You know that question, that answer is all going to be about that person and not what the original question was.
Tight. Yeah, no, perfect. But you heard there right at the end what the obvious like establishment talking point was, the new narrative talking point. No, Somalis are American, they are productive, and they are going to continue to be. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting. So I had me a little conversation with ChatGPT tonight, and you're going to get a kick out of this. And I use it as a source, not because I find it to be credible. I use it as a source, like to show people that even if you go to the left wing indoctrinated sources, you can still trap them in their lies, right? Especially if you know how to like speak to the AI. But anyway, so I asked ChatGPT just how many Somalis lived in the state of Minnesota or of Somali descent. And it spat me out a figure that's anywhere between 81,000 to 107,000 people. And they don't have the best estimate because a lot of them are avoiding deportation. They're here illegally, like so on and so forth. Huge amount of like temporary protected status, which just got revoked. I think it's hilarious, and should have happened. But that's the number that it spit it out. So I'm going to take that high number, 107,000. Let's just take that for funsies, because I do think that the numbers that we're getting are chronically underreported for a reason. So, okay, you're going to give me that. I'm going to take the high number. I said of that number, how many of them are adults? Let's go over the age of 18. And said roughly 51% of them. So 61,400. I was like, oh, that is super interesting. And I said, okay, so if they're very productive, and this is the new narrative that they generate. It said they generate $500 million in economic activity or revenue, which that whole economic activity argument cracks me up, because it's literally like if the government doles out SNAP to you and then you dole SNAP to Walmart, technically that is economic activity because credits exchanged hands, but nothing of value actually moved. So it's such a dumb statistic to use, but that's what they said: 500 million in revenue or economic activity. And it says that they pay $67 million annually in taxes. I said, oh, okay, well, maybe they are a little more productive than I thought. And then I cornered ChatGPT and I said, okay, of those numbers that you gave me, 107,000 people, 61,000 of them, 400 are adults. If they're paying $67 million in taxes annually, I said, how much is that in taxes per person? What's the per capita on that? That's $1,091 per person annually they're paying in taxes. And then if you take the revenue that they're generating, 500 million, and then I guess okay, per adult, 61,400, how much is that per person that they're generating? It's $8,100 annually. That's you're not contributing anything. Like,
No, did you ask ChatGPT what the unemployment rate was for Somalis?
I did. So I went from there. So that's my main point up top. And thanks for leading me into this, because this is hilarious. And I'm going to publish in the Discord server my ChatGPT conversation, so you guys can go back and look at it and watch. Because then I said, okay, I went into how many of them are on welfare of some kind of all the adults. It said, oh, easy. At least 81% of them are on welfare of some kind. 75% of them are on Medicaid. And about 51% of them, of the households that are headed by Somalis, are on SNAP benefits of some kind. I was like, oh, okay. So what's the total amount of welfare paid to Somalis in the state of Minnesota? And then ChatGPT, I think, got wise to where I was going and was like, there is no credible data to suggest or to find how much welfare is paid to Somalis in Minnesota. I can't give you that data. And I was like, well, how much, let's go back to the per capita. How much per capita and SNAP benefits would the 51% of houses that are Somali make? Yeah, I can't give you that data either. There's no credible sources on that. And ChatGPT may actually be telling me the truth, because if what we know about the fraud, and again, it's estimated about over $1 billion in fraud right now, which by the way, going back to, they pay 67 million in taxes. That's great. But you defrauded the United States government $1 billion. You're not producing anything. You're not productive. You are reductive. That's called theft. That is just total, like, if somebody came up to you and they were just like, "Hey, I'm going to make you a deal. You're going to give me $1 billion." Or sorry, let me do it this way. I'm going to give you $67 million, Tom. Does that sound like a good deal? Would you take that deal?
Yeah, you sound like a Nigerian prince email.
$67 million in money orders. You just have to provide me with all your tax information. But here's the thing. I'm going to charge you $1 billion for that $67 million.
I'm not an economist or a mathematician, but that doesn't sound like a good deal to me.
Deal or no deal? He said no deal. No, 100%. And I do think that it's absolutely hilarious where ChatGPT immediately put up the fence and was just like, nope, I'm not giving you those statistics. I asked it to estimate. I said, just estimate it for me based off of values. I can't give you any credible estimates because there's no credible data to base those estimates on. I was like, word. All right. Right. And again, it might be telling the truth, because this is where I was going earlier. If what we know about the fraud is indeed real, then Minnesota probably isn't keeping tabs on how much is going out the door. They're probably not keeping that data either, so that it can be referenced.
Yeah. Though that's because Minnesota, it just seems like, well, at least for Minneapolis, their economy seems to be based on a scam. It reminds me of Nigeria. I worked in Nigeria for a few months. And before going over there, I was looking at, the economic system of Nigeria, and the two leading industries in Nigeria at that time, well, the three, it was oil refinery, computer fraud, and kidnapping were the three. Were the three major industries they had. It was mainly, the kidnapping came from these bandits would take, workers at the refineries, and then whoever, whatever gas company it was would pay for the release of the oil field employees or refinery employees.
Man.
So, but that's what Minnesota, Minneapolis, getting back to my original point with Minneapolis, their whole industry there seems to be a scam. They're not really producing anything there. They're just taking money from the government and shifting it around to the people that they want the money to go to. Because you hear about these schools or what do you call it? Not for profits that for artistic kids that are just fronts where they can take pallets of cash and send them off to Somalia so they can arm El Shabaab and whoever else that they want to give money to back in Somalia. But it's, this, to me, this all started after Operation Restore Hope, and after the United States pulled out of there, after they lost the two Blackhawks, and Mike Durant got taken hostage, and I believe it was Gary Gordon, Randy Shugart, the two Delta guys who were killed in action there. And then I think like 17 or 18 other Rangers and so forth that lost their lives in that battle.
And 10th Mountain guys,
Yeah. And then after that, the Clinton administration decided, well, we've pulled out. Mohammed Farid is still alive. We got to do something. So that began this mass importation of Somalis. And I remember I was working in news at the time, and I remember the first kind of, aircraft full of Somalis that landed in Minnesota, and, everyone was greeting them and so forth. And I was thinking to myself, why in the world would the administration pick such a cold environment where you're relocating sandal people? You're taking sandal people out of the desert and you're putting them into the Arctic North.
I was made this point last week too.
Yeah, what's the point of this? It was really strange, and I could never figure it out. And then a few years ago, I was working in Columbus, Ohio, on a police show. and we went to a call, and it was an apartment complex just filled with Somalis. I couldn't believe it. And the women are wearing their regular cultural appropriate dress that they'd be running around Mogadishu or where else in.
Yep.
And it was like, -5 degrees, but they weren't outside. It was just like in the hallways of this apartment complex. But I was like, I remember asking the deputy, I'm like, how did all these Somalis get here? I had no idea you guys had such a large Somali population. He's like, oh yeah, I guess Minneapolis got full. So then, we started taking them. And then another kind of pocket that I discovered just totally, again, by accident, was in Portland, Maine. And now I'm hearing in the news they're looking into Portland for the same, or into Maine for the same sort of scam that was going on in Minnesota, because my family and I took a summer vacation to Portland, Maine, and I couldn't get over the amount of Somalis that were there. And I was like, again, I don't understand this cold weather environment from people who come from sort of an arid, deserty type environment to want to relocate to somewhere so cold and so out of the weather sphere that they came from.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that we all know now the idea was it's like, oh, let me look for places where I can resettle massive groups of people to then undermine American culture and shift the electorate in these places. Like, that's of course what it is. And you saw the same thing, the Biden administration. We did a whole podcast on how private military contractors were aiding the Biden administration in trafficking massive amounts of people over the border from 2020 through 2023. And that's what they were doing. And they were picking locations. The Haitians there in central Ohio is another group. The Muslims all started congregating there in Dearborn and in and around central Michigan. And you see these pockets just start to creep up where it's like they know and they have an opportunity. First of all, they have a Democratic friendly establishment there to where it's like they can set up these fraud systems. They can set up this money laundering schemes and so on and so forth. And then they just truck them in, man, truck them in by the busloads and drop them off. And then they go, cool, we took over that community. And then they choose another one. And it's like, move on with another group of people in another community. And that is the scam. I mean, it's such a simple scam. Anybody that's been watching it has been saying it for decades now. Like, we're on to it. You're doing it right out in the open. You know, it's like we can all see it.
You're going to become a voting block. We're going to pay you. We're going to give you all these benefits. You can get shoes, so you're not going to lose your feet and your toes during the wintertime, as long as we can rely on you for your vote. And that's what they got. But what we're seeing in Minnesota is not only did they get that voting block, but with that block comes power. So now you're seeing, the power structure of, the Somali community coming to the forefront, pushing candidates out there like Omar and Captain Phillips that ran for mayor. And it's just going to get stronger and stronger. And unfortunately, the way that the government has decided to set up our immigration system, they've done it in a way where they don't push for new arrivals, legal or illegal, to assimilate. They want everybody siloed, and that's what we're seeing now. And they want them siloed, and they want them balkanized, and ultimately they want them fighting with whoever, because that way they can put in, establish martial law.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going, and I've been saying for a long time that I think the big push here, and I've been warning people of it as it comes, is they're going to start pushing for federal policing of local communities, because the people are going to start crying out for security. They're going to start crying out for safety, and if the local police are working for a corrupt municipal government and they can't get it from those places, like in Oregon, like in Portland, Oregon, like in Seattle, like in all these aforementioned communities that we just talked about, the people will eventually cry out for federal policing, and that shit scares the piss out of me when they push for that.
It should scare the piss out of everybody. I've done a lot of shows with law enforcement over the course of my career, and I can tell you there are tremendous differences in policing from Boston to Oklahoma to Washington State. And each of these communities are totally different and need a form of policing tailored toward the community that they serve. You can't have a one size fits all for the entire nation. It's never going to work. You can't police the same way in Providence, Rhode Island, as you do at a Papago Indian nation
Right.
In Arizona. It's not going to work. It's just you can't you're not going to have the same sort of cultural sensitivities
Right.
that that you're going to have in Providence, Rhode Island, as you are in Arizona on an Indian reservation. It's not going to happen.
No, of course not. And another thing too, it's like we say all the time, import the third world, like become the third world. One of the things that you have to understand about these groups of people is they come from incredibly, incredibly corrupt systems where corruption is built into the system. You've been to Nigeria, you've been to the Middle East. How many times did you go out on a convoy or whatever? I'm sure, and I don't want to give away too much about where you were and who you were with, but it's like even the Americans had to be sure that they drove around with bribe money on them, because it's like, oh, random checkpoint that popped up. Well, here in this country, you just bribe the police. That's just what you do. That is part of daily doing business. And they bring that culture and they bring it here. They're used to dealing with corrupt politicians. That's actually their bread and butter. They're like, I get that, right? Like that makes complete and total sense to me. It's the Americans that think that are, and I think most of the normies are waking up, but some of the normies out there that still think that government officials have your best interest at heart. Like these third worlders are looking at you and laughing because they get the system. They see what's going on plain as day and they're used to it.
Right. But you know what? I look at the corrupt policing systems, say in Mexico where you get pulled over and, they're just hunting around for some liquor or, some money or whatever. Usually a lot of times money. I kind of, if I get pulled over, I'd rather kind of like slip the officer $100-200 and not have to go to court, not have to have the insurance raise up, on my vehicle. It kind of, there is some kind of benefit to having a corrupt system, but ultimately I'm kidding.
I know where you're coming from.
But, either system is exploitable by anybody, by human beings. And that's the point of either a corrupt system or, our system is, it's corrupt, but the people who are corrupt are in suits and ties.
It's a really good way to put it. I did like the point that you made earlier about like they didn't just come here and then just not assimilate and silo. They push for the power. And they're starting to get their own candidates out there, and they are pushing for power, but it's not just their candidates that they have power over. I pulled this video from you because it's also the Democratic politicians that are trying to stay in the good graces of these new third world population centers that are popping up in the United States that are tripping over themselves hand and foot to run to pander to these people. So staying in Minnesota, Jacob Fry had a moment like this the other day. Did you see this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, where he had to go sit down and he had to pay fealty to the local Somalis, and they fed him, some of their local food, and it didn't go very well for Mr. upper middle class Jacob Fry. Guys, check this out.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
No, I'm not wondering, Jacob. I know exactly how you wonder. And of course, guys, that was like a meme based on it. If you can go find the full clip on Twitter, like he tries to choke down one spoonful of nasty beans that was probably mixed with some guy's feet in the back of the kitchen, and that's the face that he makes. And then he doesn't take another bite. He just kind of pushes the food around with his spoon. He's like, that's a real good, But I like the meme version of it better, so that's what we got.
Right. It reminded me of East Palestine when the governor of Ohio went down there. I can't remember that worm's name, the little dude with the glasses. And they
help us out, chat. Governor of Ohio, can't remember.
And
come up with it.
Yeah, he's got the glasses. And anyways, they were drinking tap water and they were bringing the glasses to their mouths and going, oh, it's good. It's totally good. And the same thing with
wine.
Jacob. He takes one bite and he's like, and then starts like taking a spoon and like mixing it around and stuff. And just, he doesn't want to dig in again.
Oh no, absolutely not. And there's a reason that in the special forces, like in the training pipeline, you've seen it. One of the things that we go through, especially in Robin Sage, is like they will make us some nasty food. And the whole point is you have to sit down, you have to do the key leader engagement with the local VIP, and they will bring you some nasty stuff and you have to eat it, dude. And I've eaten lizard and snake in Indonesia. I've eaten, mystery stewed meat in Syria. Syria. I mean, like you eat it wherever you go. I've had balut, from the Philippines.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like there's some nasty food out there. But like part of the thing about being the cultural guy, and especially in the SF regimen, it's like, hey man, you got to be able to choke it down and not look like that while you're doing it. Right. So
Yeah,
that's
it's insulting.
exactly.
Yeah,
No, it is.
I was on a shoot in Democratic Republic of Congo, and the shoot that I was with, there was a former Delta operator who's an on-camera person. There was a former guy from MI5 who was also a Royal Marine, and then there was a former soldier with the South African Special Forces, and also he had worked for Executive Outcomes back in the day in like Angola and Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
And so we were working with the FARDC, their army, and also with the park rangers there in the Virunga forest, because they were having problems with militias, Rwandan militias that ended up in that forest killing, silverback gorillas and terrorizing the refugee camps and so forth. So we had a lunch with this guy nicknamed General Baby Killer. And we said, our people were like, we're going to go ahead and bring lunch. And what we had found out by the person who was our facilitator there, that Congolese people hate eating peanut butter on bread. So, of course, we made peanut butter sandwiches because everybody who was there wanted to see that dude choke something down.
How do you like it? Exactly. I love it, dude. I love that energy. That's great. Well, staying in Minnesota for one last thing. I don't even know how to tee this up, but I don't know if you knew this, Tom, but Tim Walz, the cum guzzler in chief, the night horse rider. I didn't know if you knew this, but he is literally running for governor. Did you know this?
That's what the rumor has it.
Okay. No, I mean, seriously, he's literally running for governor.
Hey everybody, Tim here. Literally out on a run. Beautiful day, start my day this way.
Literally.
If you can't join me on this run, join me on the run for governor of Minnesota. I need your help. wallsforgovernor.org. Thanks, folks, and get out and run.
Yeah.
Which is funny because 5 months ago, his daughter came out and said that running was part of systemic racism in America.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That got buried.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
just so silly.
It is enough to really black pill you. It's like when you can't even tell me if you're a liberal or a Democrat or even a Somali that resonates with you in any way. This fat, cheeky white guy. Hey everybody, I'm literally out for a run.
Yeah.
No shit, Sherlock. Like,
yeah, you know who wrecked it was Pete Buttigieg when he was transportation secretary. It took the bike out of the Suburban, got on it, and rode into work. So now all of us know the kayfabe is over with. It was like the time when I was 10 years old and I saw Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer get in a car with Dusty Rhodes after they just battled each other and bled on the mat. I was like, I see what it is now. It's the same. Pete blew it for all of them.
Oh yeah, no, and dude, it's so they're all so fake. Everything is fake and gay. Like we know it, but there's get better people to run your social media. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, ask ChatGPT what the kids are saying these days. Like, I don't know. It's just like the guy has always tried to present himself as some type of Midwestern dad type figure, right? So I know he's like going for the dad joke mentality or whatever. I don't think it's going to work. I think personally that all of this fraud is going to sink him in Minnesota. I think it's going to sink Ilhan Omar in Minnesota too. And my evidence for that, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is that as they've been going through all this, I haven't seen a single like actual Democrat come out and fight for them and go to the mat for them. They're just kind of getting a super cold shoulder, which is the political version of whatever, we ran this wagon as far as it'll go. Like just let that problem take care of itself. Like nobody's coming out and fighting for him. So I think that they're done, him and Ilhan Omar specifically, which, it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people by any means. But
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily cut out Elon. I think they're going to cut bait with Tim because, I mean, this whole sort of persona of this, like, D-list sort of gay motivational speaker routine that he goes through is just like wearing off. He's always like, hey, here we are. You guys ready? Hey,
Yeah.
taking the stage with that little microphone here and walking back and forth with the jazz hands and everything. You go, okay,
Right.
breathe in, everybody. Yes. He just has
Yeah.
that kind of vibe to him that's just so annoying. I think that it's going to be easy to cut bait with him just because I personally think that there is so much leverage on him when it comes to shady shit that he's done in his past
Yeah.
with all his trips to China. It's just, having that Jerry Sandusky vibe to him that
Oh, yeah.
there's some real darkness in his past, my opinion. But when it comes to the likes of Omar is right in step where I think the new Democrat Socialist Party is right now. She appeals to their base. And being a woman of color, I mean, that supersedes anything else within the rationale of that party. So I don't really see anything happening to her. And I also see her defense is hardening. The more that Trump goes after her, the more dug in she's going to be. And the more, the rest of these awfuls, these, white, affluent, liberal women are going to come to her defense and they're going to dig in too. And it's getting her out of there is going to be like trying to get, a German out of trench warfare in World War I. It's just, I don't see it happening.
I just think that they're going to find another Somali to replace her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're going to flip a seat by any means. I mean, it's like
Right.
deep liberal. Like, Minnesota is the only state that didn't vote for Reagan, right? And I'm not
Right.
saying Reagan is some paragon of conservatism.
Well, Walter
I'm gonna get
Mondale
a lot
is
of
from there.
hate for that, but there is that. But no, I think they're going to replace her with like a newer, younger, fresher person that's not that doesn't have this stench of the fraud all over it. I think that they're going to allow her to kind of be the sacrificial goat and take that and like carry it away with her, and then they'll just usher some other younger, fresher Somali up that it's like he or she had nothing to do with it. Don't oh man, that's racist if you take what she did and blame it on him just because they're both Somalians. It's such an easy defense to write that it's like, come on, if I can come up with it, like they got to be 3 steps ahead of me on that one. That's just what I think. But
yeah, well, if that does happen to her, then the left always takes care of their own. She's gonna end up, being like a no-show professor somewhere, making $1.5 million for a year. She's gonna get very well rewarded for everything that she's done. Whereas on the other side of the aisle, if you get in trouble, if you run afoul of the party, if your likability goes down, you're gone. And look what they did to George Santos. That would never happen on the Democrat socialist side ever in 1 million years.
No, it's true. The right definitely does not take care of people. Like if you're out in the cold, dude, you're out in the cold. I mean, like the only reason that Donald Trump was able to come back and run a third time was because he's an independent billionaire.
Yeah.
Everybody turned their back on him, for the first few years of the Biden administration and pinned everything on him. And it was the whole like, can we just get back to to good down home conservative politics? And the American people were obviously like, no. That's the point. That's what we're rejecting, but not rehashing all that. I do think I think it's funny, and like I said, it can get you black pilled, but at a certain point, you just got to point at these people and laugh, and that's what we're doing. But jumping out of Minnesota, and we'll definitely keep our eyes on what's happening there as these fraud cases continue to mount. Another story that we talked about recently. Did you hear that the Secretary of War committed war crimes?
I didn't know we were at war.
I went through and I did like a 5 or 6 point debunking of it where I actually pulled up the Geneva Convention. I pulled up LOAC. I pulled up the Hague Convention. I went back to all the laws that they were, and I pulled up international maritime law, and I pointed at everything that they were pointing at, and I debunked it one by one, going line by line through the law and what the legalities of them were. And then I pointed out some other stuff about like how many officers are in the chain between SEC war all the way down to the officer that's actually in charge of the mission at the time. And I'm like, you can't pick out the guy that sits under the president and say that he committed war crimes without charging all 72 of those officers in between where that was going up and down and saying they committed war crimes too, because it was greenlit all the way up and down the the chain, as it were, but not relitigating all that. Senator Tammy Duckworth, who is a war vet, I do want to point out, because all things, being equal, she is a war vet, senator from Illinois. She went on CNN recently, and she decided, from her veteran status, to weigh in on this situation because, everybody else was getting some screen time for it. Why not Tammy Duckworth?
They've not been authorized to be at war. And by the way, the individuals in that boat were not even aimed at the United States. So everything that they've done has been illegal. It's illegal under international law. It's illegal under the Geneva Convention. And it certainly is even illegal under domestic law. It was essentially murder with that double tap strike.
I mean, that's a very strong statement. Murder. Does that constitute a war crime? Is that what you're saying?
She forgot to say the buzzword, Tom.
It is a war crime.
She teetered back up.
How will you put it? It's all
you
illegal.
Gotta throw in Pete
You have
Hegseth
seen the
in it.
classified video of this particular strike, the first strike, and then the double tap, as it's known.
No, I've just seen what's been available in the media. I've read the full report, but I've not seen the actual video. I've requested to be able to see the actual video. I've also been actually asked to see the after action reports from the pilots and the drone operators, as well as the intelligence debrief that all pilots and drone operators conduct after they have completed a mission.
Mm-hmm.
That woman.
So again, all things being equal, Tammy Duckworth did serve in the Army Reserves. I do believe it's either National Guard or Reserves. She is a war vet. She was wounded in war. You know what she did when she was in the Army?
Drove a truck, something in the rear.
She flew Black Hawks.
Really?
Not Black Cocks, guys. Black Hawks, because I know what you're thinking out there. I mean, she might do that too. I don't know. I don't know anything about Tammy Duckworth. But anyway, my point being, like, she knows better. She absolutely knows what she's saying is completely and totally false. She knows that it's totally baseless, and yet she can sit there, stare in the screen, and just repeat these lies one after another. And she knows. I guarantee you, she was a part of missions where, she had gunners on board that had to engage the enemy. I mean, she herself was wounded by an RPG, I do believe. Right. And so it's like, she knows what strikes look like. She knows what the kill chain looks like. She knows how many officers are involved in approving a strike or not. She knows all these things. And yet she still can sit there and say that to you. This is how duplicitous all these people are. But I do think it's funny, in the same manner that they can be so good at lying, they can also be so very bad at it. Because Data Bash is like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a strong. Have you seen the classified video? Oh, well, no. I asked to see it.
Exactly.
But it was definitely for serials. I'm being for real, guys. # trust me, bro. Yes, Queen Slay. It was definitely a war crime. Guarantee it.
She was right on one thing she did say. She said those boats aren't coming to the U.S., and they're not. I don't think people realize how far Venezuela is from the coast of Florida, which is, the largest landmass, in closest proximity to Venezuela. It's over 1,000 miles away. If you have a twin outboard boat, and I was just hopped on ChatGPT, just kind of did a basic rundown of, how long would it take in open seas in a craft like that to make it to the U.S. And it was a 30-hour trip. And that thing ain't going 30 hours and then coming back. It's going to a mothership. That's how all drugs get into the United States, is mainly through our ports of entry, whether it's on a semi or whether it's on a cargo ship. But the problem that we run into, and this goes a little bit into the conspiracy rabbit hole, is the fact that these motherships, these go-fast boats that we see getting droned, they're going to meet a mothership. So for every one of those that you see getting blown to smithereens I can guarantee you there's between 5 and 10 other ones that are making it to that ship to offload what they have, and then it's coming into the US. So if you're serious about trying to curtail the drug importation to the United States, you're going to sink one of these motherships. But there is no way on God's green earth that our government is going to, drone strike a Mars cargo ship. That's just not going to happen because I don't know if you know this or not, but the people that own these shipping companies, they're pretty wealthy and they're pretty, I would put them sort of in that elite category. I'm not sure if they're the ones going to, what is it, Kazakhstan, to where they have that temple with the 200 chairs in there. Right. I don't know if they're quite at that level, but they're approaching that level. And the United States is not going to do anything that's going to affect their business.
I'm not going to go too much into it because it was breaking right before I came on tonight, but just to back up exactly what you're saying, this is per Nick Sorter. I just did a quick search and his was the first account that came up, but breaking video has been released of U.S. forces seizing control of a massive oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Per President Trump, this is the largest tanker ever seized. And the videos that they're showing of it, I mean, this is a boarding. Like they went and they did a maritime, what's called Visit Board Search Seas, VBSS operation in order to take control of it. So you're right. They didn't want the optics of pulling a Maersk oil tanker out of the water, but they did drop some seals on its deck and they absolutely took control of it. So
right. I don't think it's not going to be the oil tankers that are going to be bringing in the drugs.
That's how they were doing it out of Iraq. If you remember back in the day, not saying that they were actually they weren't moving. I don't want to get into the whole WMDs thing, but there were certain components and stuff that they were moving, and they were using ships like oil tankers and then the giant cargo ships, and then they were burying the stuff like underneath the cargo at the bottom, so right. But yeah,
but I mean, for me, for looking at it as a logistics perspective, and also talking to drug smugglers who, but before I got into the world of podcasting, I was pitching, films and TV shows and documentaries. And I talked to a group of these guys called the Saltwater Cowboys. And they used to be fishermen back in the Everglades, and the government kept trying to push them off their land. So they turned to bringing in marijuana at the time. And each of them told me that once the loads went from green to white, and they refused to bring in the white ones, they all started getting arrested. That was really weird and coincidental. So the way that I understand it is, I'm sure that, there's ways to bring in, fentanyl, cocaine, whatever you want, fentanyl pills through an oil tanker. But logistically, if you could get them in containers and, whatever marked containers that they're supposed to go in, get those loads in there. So when they're offloaded, they're just put on the back of a semi, hauled somewhere and dropped off, and then somebody retrieves it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, dead drops, cutouts, like all that jazz. These people aren't stupid. This is their profession, after all, right? And I do want to say, like, I'm not making any inferences. I don't know if there was drugs, if there was fentanyl on the oil tanker. I was just saying, per what you were saying, and how they are using larger ships loitering off the coast as an anchoring point to then consolidate product. I'm like, this story, and like I said, I don't want to go too far into it because I didn't have time to dig into it and like really look. I'm just saying, oh, look, breaking earlier tonight. That fits. And I absolutely expected to see operations like this, like immediately afterwards. Like I just did. So there's that. But like I said, I don't want to get out ahead of my skis because I haven't gotten to research it too much yet. But anyway, moving right along. So we started in Minnesota. We came through the sunny waters of the Caribbean. Let's jump down to Texas for this one. And this cracks me up. Per the title of the video, we got a Texas-sized Croc-O-Chit going on down here. So I'm sure that you know a little bit about this already, Tom.
Especially in this moment. There are a lot of people that said, you got to stay in the house. We need our voice.
Well, she can't. They redistricted her out of it.
And I understand. But what we need is for me to have a bigger voice. What we need is not only a voice, but we need to make sure that we are going to stop all the hell of us, especially in this moment. There are a lot of people that said,
yeah. We don't need it twice. Okay. Just stop. I'm tired of listening to you. But anyway, it's so funny. It doesn't matter where she goes. They can't seem to get the smoke detectors changed. I don't know what is up with that. It's so strange. Anyway, Tom, I think it's so funny that she literally did the meme. Because it's like we say about the political class all the time, where it's like, oh, dang, just couldn't get it done. You know what? If you just give me more power, I definitely for cereals guys can do it this time. Right.
Exactly.
I think that she's unironically doing the meme. So it's like, I don't even know how to make fun of you now, because it's like, you're just saying the thing out loud that you're supposed to keep behind closed doors. But I do think that it's really funny. I think she inadvertently gave something away there. And when she said, they said to me, we need you in the House, just stay there. I don't think that she was talking about the voters. I think she's talking about her Democratic colleagues. She's talking about the donors. She's talking about anybody behind closed doors that they're like, if you do this, you are going to fuck up what we have going on in Texas. Don't get involved in the Senate. And she literally cannot get over herself. Like, nope. She's like, nope, I'm going to do that too. With her code switching and all that jazz. Like it's also on the nose, but my God, like, on one side I go, these people can't be that tone deaf. And then on the other side, I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe she's just a low IQ person. What do you think?
I've seen past interviews with her, and I know that she went to Rhodes College, which is a good university, and she went to this country day school in St. Louis that has a premium price for you to get in.
Yeah, like $35,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah. I think what she's doing and the way she code switches is an act, just like all politicians do, trying to pander to trying to pander in a way where she comes across as more authentic, whatever that means. But as far as Jasmine goes, I love her. I don't want her to go anywhere. I want to keep seeing her. I want to see this campaign. I want more sound bites, because she's electric when she's in front of the camera with those big eyelashes, the baby hair, the fake nails,
pterodactyl wings, dude.
Yeah, it's the complete package. And then whatever comes out of her mouth is just comedy gold. That's and true. So I want her for as long as possible.
I could not agree with you more. And somebody in the chat was saying that too. Please run, please do it. I agree. That is my here. It was Brett Harris. Please run, Crockett. And she's polling like 10 points behind any Republican down there at Texas. This isn't like getting elected in liberal Dallas. Like, she's got to go up against the entire state. She's not going to get elected. And I'm with you, Tom. She is absolute comedy gold. I thought that she was going to go away, but every time she's on camera, it's like, it is free cheddar. That is free content, dude. That is just so easy to dunk on. And it's going to be great. And what she's going to do is going to screw up what the Democrats have going on in Texas. No doubt about it. She's going to become a fly into the ointment to them. I just don't know how. I think that they have something for her, something bigger that they want her to do. And because she's getting redistricted, this is my theory, because she got redistricted out of Texas, she had to have something that was going to keep her being politically relevant through 2026 till she gets rotated out of Texas and they find her some safe district somewhere or some other place to serve in some Democratic administration or whatever. That's what they're going to do with her. She just has to stay politically relevant long enough in order for them to do that with her. Right. Like, that's what I think is going on. But that being said, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, if a Democrat wins the presidency in 2028, she will be the next transportation secretary.
Or something like that. 100%. Yes, she will.
I'm calling it right now. I'm going to put money in on transportation secretary.
You think transportation, not urban housing and development?
No, she's going for transpo.
Okay. All right. Word. You guys heard it here. Put it in the chat. Tally one down for Tom. Transportation secretary for Jasmine. But I'm sure you saw this one too. So this is how that she's actually launching her campaign. This was her launch vid. And I'm not being ironic when I say, because a lot of people are dunking on this and they're like, how stupid. This is the dumbest way that she could have launched her campaign. I'm not sure. And I'd love to get your take on this. So this was her virtual launch.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her? She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crokett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man, oh, man. She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
Tom, you are in media. You are in entertainment. Producing is your thing. What do you think?
Well, it started off looking like, like an oil painting of a Civil War general. The way that, they had that profile pic going. I don't know if they were going for that necessarily, but that was the first thought that I had when I saw that. But the repetition of Trump, calling her low IQ and this and that, the Democrats have found themselves in a position where no matter what race it is, they're running against Trump. So is it effective for their base? Yes. Is it effective for anybody who's on the fence about her? No. That's just red meat for the base. The rest of us think it's kind of silly. I think that if I were running like an MK Ultra type program and I was doing like psychic driving where you have a tape recording of somebody, that would be my tape recording. And I would have them sit there and just listen to that on a loop and watch her on a loop until I got to the point where I could, manipulate their mind to do whatever I wanted them to do.
So what I heard, and I think this is very indicative of just how far the left and the right are completely divided. The right is laughing because they heard Trump say she's a low IQ person 3 or 4 times. What I heard, and I had to take off my conservative hat and put on, if I was a libtard and like what's she trying to signal to the base. Trump also said that she was a rising star in the Democratic Party 4 times. And he said, who's going to save him? It's going to be Crockett. And then he laughed. And so if you're a Democrat, you're listening to that and you're thinking, oh, Trump is scared of her. She's going to get him, right? Like that's, those are the sound bites that she pulled. They weren't stupid when they pulled that. And I do think that you're absolutely correct. Her main pitch to her voters is Trump hates me, so vote for me. That automatically makes me the gal. Now, that being said, and I'm so glad that you said that, this video surfaced from Susie Wilds in the last couple of days. And so this is why I said, I don't think that Jasmine Crokett might not be wrong in her pitch, because here's what the White House Chief of Staff is signaling. And I don't know what podcast this is, guys. I apologize, but it obviously is a very female-centric podcast. So check this out.
Typically, just a little bit of campaign speak, if I may.
Yeah.
Typically, in the midterms, it's not about.
And it's a middle-aged woman podcast.
You localize the election,
right.
and you keep the federal officials out of it. We're actually going to turn that on its head.
Good.
And put them on the ballot, because so many of those low propensity voters are Trump voters. So I haven't quite broken it to him yet, but he's going to campaign like it's 2024 again.
Oh.
For all these people that he helps. He doesn't help everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but for those he does, he's a difference maker, and he's certainly a turnout machine. So the midterms will be very important to us. He'll work very hard.
Yeah. So, Tom, what did you pick out of that? What stood out to you?
Well, I think after these gubernatorial races that we saw in Virginia and New Jersey, even though there were blue states, we saw that the voter turnout for Republicans just wasn't the same as it is when Trump is on the ballot. And then you had in Miami, they had a mayoral race yesterday, and a Democrat unseated the Republican or beat a Republican for the first time in 30 years. And the same thing. It was the Republicans just aren't motivated, it seems, to go out and vote when Trump's not on on the ticket or the ballot.
This is true. We
So-
know this. That's the trend. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the way that I see, the midterms coming up with people retiring or people quitting or leaving their seats, I see the House going back to the Democrats if something radical isn't done. And the thing that needs to be done is, Susie Wiles is right. Trump has to, appear to be on the ticket. And when I say that, I know he's not on the ticket, but
Right.
he needs to be out there actively campaigning and holding these rallies to get the voters out there. Now, we could go back to another conspiracy about voting and that whole thing, but
Sure, yeah.
if your mindset is, that voting does matter, then yes, then they need to do this and they need to get people out there to vote. And I think it's a smart move on their part because these Trump rallies, I've never been to one, but I've seen plenty on TV. And it looks like everybody who attends there is having a great time. They always have, a good musical guest or two, the pyrotechnics, all of it. It looks like a fun event for people to get motivated to go out and say, okay, even though Trump's not on the ballot, we still have to back this guy because whatever the Trump agenda is, there won't be a Trump agenda if the House flips in the midterms.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you on all that. I just find it to be very interesting. I agree with you on all of that, by the way. I just find it to be very interesting that Jasmine Crokett's opening pitch is Trump hates me, vote for me. He says I'm a low IQ person, but I'm the rising star of the Democratic Party. And then everybody's like, well, Trump's not on the ticket. She's so dumb. She's so low IQ. But then the White House turns around and signals, no, we are putting Trump on the ticket. He's going right back out there. So Jasmine Crokett is going to get the publicity because the higher Trump rises. And if she is doing anti-Trump campaign and that's it, that's her pitch, she's going to get the election race that she wants. And so I think she shot a good shot with it, which is why a lot of people are saying, oh, it was dumb. He called her low IQ. What a dunk. And I'm like, guys, I don't think it was necessarily dumb. I think she put out the exact message that she wanted Democrats to hear. And then now the White House is going to be, like you said, putting Trump on the ballot. One other thing that Susie Wild said that was very interesting to me is when she just offhandedly made the statement, like he doesn't quite know it yet because I haven't broken it to him, but we're gonna put him out there and he's gonna go campaign like it's 2024. Now for somebody that's as deep into the conspiracy theories as you are, like I talked with my wife about it. She has a much different opinion from me. I think that there's maybe three possibilities here. I think there's it was a woman-centric podcast for middle-aged women. I think there was the attempt to maybe look like kind of the wifely role. It's like when you talk about your husband, it's like, oh, he doesn't know it yet, but we definitely want to go to Cancun this year for vacation. Right? Like I'm going to convince him. That's kind of the one path where it's like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. Then there's the other where it's like, well, maybe Trump already knew. He had made a comment about it. Like, I would like to see this be the way that the campaign goes, where I get out and we really push the ball into the end zone, as it were, because I know you're a huge football guy, because it's like we need to keep the House. And she heard that. She's running with it as his chief of staff. And maybe the point of the statement was not, or maybe the point of the statement was, he doesn't quite know it yet, but he's going to be campaigning like it's 2024 again. Maybe the point was like he doesn't know like to what extent he's going to be campaigning yet, but we're planning it to be big. Like it's going to be like 2024 all over again. And this might be my dude brain, and chat, like you can let me know if I misheard this, but then there's the other idea of like, is the president being handled to where it's like he doesn't quite know this yet, but he's going to be campaigning and it's going to be like it's 2024. So I think there's kind of three different ways that you could kind of read that statement, but I just found it to be super interesting that she just slipped it in there and then just bounced off of it to talk about like how important Trump is to be on the ballot. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts. One, I think we all see what the strategy is for the Democrats moving forward, because their whole thing is, stop Trump. And the only way that they can do that, in with this 4 years is to be able to flip the House or the Senate or both in the midterms. So, or the House, I mean. And what they're doing is death by 1,000 cuts by doing that. They're trying to pick up any momentum that they can anywhere. Like we just discussed, the gubernatorial races, the mayor's race in Miami, wherever they can pick up, wherever they can chalk up Democrat wins, that's what they're going for. Sure. And they look at it as, if we get one more person here, one more piece here, we're getting the pieces in the right place, where we did talk earlier about, the pawn taking out the king. So if you get all those pieces in place, then you can stop Trump. I also think, I did work on The Apprentice, and I've worked on a couple of other shows where I had, pretty close contact with the president, just by happenstance early on, in the early 2000s. And so, I mean, I don't know him that well, but I know him well enough to understand his personality, especially when I worked on The Apprentice and I saw the producers, because my camera position inside the conference room, where they would decide on who they were going to fire for that episode. My camera position was right next to Caroline. She was the first, one of the first two people that were like part of Trump's advisors. You had Caroline and George. So my camera position was next to Caroline. Anyways, I saw these conversations, and what I kind of take the way that I see Trump and the way that I see why he might be a little bit hesitant to go out and campaign for people as much as Susie might think he should. Because I also think there's a part of him who's like, look, man, I'm done, in 2028. You MFers got to stand on your own. I'm approaching 80. I'm going to be playing golf, at my country club. I'm going to be hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. If you guys are going to have any kind of a political party, you got to figure it out yourselves. And so I think that might be, like I said, I don't know him, but I saw that sort of mindset with him in his, it is a thought process when it came to, who he was going to keep, talking about, somebody's strengths and weaknesses and so forth. And he's very much of a person who is like, if I'm going to hire you, then do your job. I'm not going to micromanage you. I want to hire the best, and then you have to do it. And I feel like he's like, look, I got you guys to the finish line twice. You guys got to do this on your own now at some point. I can't be the guy that you keep coming back to.
And I think that we've seen that in the way that he's treated his cabinet this go around, because a lot of people are kind of disquieted with Cash already. And I've voiced my own criticisms of Cash and the way that he's running shop. Pam Bondi is another one. You can see it in the way that he's had Pete Hegseth back through all the scandals that they've tried to drag him to. But you're absolutely right. He's put together his dream team, and for better or worse, he doesn't micromanage these people. He's letting them run with the ball. And he's like, I put you in position, like, go do the thing. And I'm over here and I'm working on foreign policy, and I'm telling NATO that they suck. And I'm talking over here to Europe, and I'm like, dude, he's all over the place. It's pretty wild. I do want to pull up this comment before we jump off of it. Sorry for stepping on you. But Hangnail says, I think Chris and the channel should talk about the connection of Act Blue and the NGOs and the correlation of devising funds to the Democratic Party. Hey, we did an entire deep dive on that in a live stream back during the 2024 election. It's a much, much older live stream, but there is a live stream where we broke that down and fleshed the whole thing out, bro. So definitely go back. And if you're in the Discord, I can drop you the link for that in the Discord server later on. But Tom, you were going to say, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, and that's what I think that Trump is trying to do with the Republican Party as a whole, is to say, look, it's your turn. You got to go do this. Time to fly, little birdie. But right. What I feel like the Republicans, there's this internal battle between I guess you would call them like America First Republicans, and then your John McCain Republicans.
Sure.
And that would be like your Nikki Haley's and your Mike Pence's of the world. I think that battle, or even the Bushes, I think that battle is real. And I think that, much like the Taliban in the wintertime, when they just kind of go out and hide, wait for the weather to break, that's what I feel like the Bushes and that side of the Republican Party are doing. They're just biding their time.
Sure.
And as soon as the weather starts to get nice, You're going to, hear a morning prayer, and the next thing you know, RPGs are going to be fired at your forward operating base, and it's going to be on. It's going to be the onslaught of these people who, the Mitt Romneys of the world, all these people that we thought, were cast aside, after Trump 1.0 and now after Trump 2.0. But they're just waiting. They're the waiting game. They're just playing the waiting game now.
Yeah, no,
to seize control of the party again.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And yeah, awesome, Hangnail. So you did see it. Yeah, no, we need to remind people. I think that's one of those topics that definitely will come up again next year during 2026 while the midterms are happening. It's a thing that will come up, and we definitely will hit it again. I just wanted everybody to know that back during the last election cycle, we definitely did do that. That information is all over the place out there. So, but Tom, that's what we got for the kick around. I'm not going to torture you with any more political videos for tonight. We've made it to the end of that. If you guys are hanging out, like I said, if you want to be a part of the conversation, we got 71 people hanging out over on Rumble. Don't pay attention to whatever's going on up here with the view count. I don't know. Solar flare, solar storm. The apocalypse is upon us, and the studio is just janky tonight, not working. So, but I see all of you guys hanging out over there. If you want to be part of the conversation, definitely any Rumble rant all the way down to the dollar, and the topic is yours. And I'm going to throw this one to Colts Walker just because he's a huge friend of the channel and a mod. He says, Tom and Chris, question. Tom was a cameraman for the television program The Apprentice. Did I understand that correctly?
Yep, that is correct. And that was my first time working with Donald Trump. And the second time that I worked with him, I was doing Top Gear America. And the premise for that episode is we brought these supercars to Trump Tower, and he brought in the three hosts to the boardroom, and they started talking about their personalities. And the premise was he was going to buy a supercar for... it was Melania, because he was first started seeing Melania in 2004. 2004 is when I did The Apprentice, and that was the first that Melania had come onto my radar. And that was the premise of that show. So that one was real quick. And I'm telling you, Trump is the exact same guy, on TV as he is in person, because he came in, he goes, all right, gentlemen, I've got 20 minutes to film this segment. Is everybody ready? And he looked at every cameraman in the room. He's like, we all good? And he's like, all right, let's go. One take, and we're out in 20 minutes.
I love it, dude. Can he come in and run my command and staff briefings each week?
Oh, yeah.
You do. If you want, man, while we got the height of the viewers, let them know what you're working on now and where they can go watch it.
Sure. Well, I've got a few things going on. I'm the co-host of This Is My Show with Drew Berquist, which airs Tuesday and Thursday. Drew's a former CIA intel officer. I cover more of sort of the conspiracy type of the way that I see the world, which is funny because since I've been doing the show with Drew going on, I think 3 years now, that Drew is slowly starting to come over.
I've noticed that because I've watched you guys for like 2 years now, and I'm like, dude, I think Tom's just steadily chipping away at the company man there.
Right. Well, I started my career on the TV show Cops as a cameraman. I did a show for ABC called Profiles from the Front Line, which you can see on YouTube, where I was embedded with the Green Beret A-Team, ODA 361. I did a lot of work for the Discovery Channel, and one of the projects I did was Special Forces Assessment and Selection School that was called 2 Weeks in Hell, and then that spun off into Surviving the Cut. I mentioned The Apprentice. Did I mention Amazing Race? I think if I didn't, The Amazing Race. Just a myriad of shows. And also another one, I did a film in 2012 back in Afghanistan where I was embedded with the Marine Corps Working Dog Team. Was probably, that shoot in particular was probably the most sort of, it took every amount of skill that I had, not only as a camera operator, but as a producer, as a director, just everything that I had in my tool bag, I felt like I had to pull out during that shoot because things just went off the rails so quickly. It just such a large scale that the wheels could have come off and we wouldn't have had anything. And so it's just trying to cobble together, it's like, in SF, it's like when things don't go right is when you make your money because you have to figure out a way to fix it. It was very unconventional filmmaking, and that's what I had to do in order to get the job done. So I worked on the show Live PD until it got canceled in 2020, and now I'm working on another police show.
Dude, I got to say, one of the reasons that that you've become a really close friend of mine, and I would like to say that I think like we've had many a drunk conversation after 2 a.m. already at this point, is I love how humble you are, and that like I literally have to coax you to talk about like what you've done and what your creds are. You usually just get on and you're like, yeah, my name's Tom, and I'm one of the weird people that sees the lines through everything and just knows that we're all just sheep out here being shepherded toward an apocalyptic future. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, that's what happens when you're a fringe dweller. You spend 30 years, either behind the camera, directing the camera, or producing, the other two positions, or how many ever people you have on the crew, which is funny because after doing it for so long, I'm probably the most well-known unknown person that you're ever going to meet when it comes to being entertained by, especially in the reality world.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ratchet's coming in here with $2, and she gets $1 a question. I love your frugality. 2 questions, Tom. When you worked in Coles, Ohio, did you follow up with Coles PD or Franklin County Sheriff? And then what did you guys think of Trump's truth to Pam Bondi?
Well, the first one, I worked with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and the sheriff there, I know his first name is Dallas. I can't remember his last name. That was back in 2019. So, Sheriff of Franklin County, forgive me if you're watching this and I forgot your last name. But I really enjoyed my time there. One of the deputies that we rode with, he had we walked in on this woman who had we were going to look for this woman that had a warrant. So, went down to the basement looking for her. She was hiding in the basement. And as we were looking for her, the TV was blaring. And so, I was trying to figure out a way to see if there was somebody in the house who could shut off the TV that was down in the basement. And when I looked at the TV, she was watching a porno, like an old school, like DVD porno. And the deputy
go out of your way to find those.
I know, right? You talk about old school. I mean, that's really old school. I guess you could have VHS. That'd be even older school. But anyways, they get the woman into custody. And then the deputy that I'm with notices the porno and turns and looks right into the camera. Is like, and then that face that he made into the camera became a meme. So that was kind of like, Columbus, Ohio's, mark when I was working on Live PD. Was
Ratchet thinks she knows who you're talking about. She's saying her name. Ratchet, before we move on, I'm going to let you finish, Tom, but I just want to make sure I have the right thing pulled up in the background. Is it the one that ends with "Justice must be served now, President DJT"? Just let me know in the chat if that's the truth that you meant. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to get to the second question about Pam Bondi that she had. Was it the tweet that he put out about telling Pam Bondi to, start making arrests, and then
I'm thinking so,
or a different one?
I'm going to start reading it. And if this is not the truth, guys, then just tell me to stop. But it starts with, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same gold story. I'm not going to do this as Trump the whole time. That's too much effort. Same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Yes. Okay. This is the one. All talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam, Shifty Shift, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past. A woke rhino who is never going to do his job. That's why 2 of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that he had no case. No, I fired him. And there is a great case. And many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. Okay, that means a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served. Now, DJT. All right. There's the statement.
That Trump summed up the way that I felt and a lot of other people felt. But real quick, just to close out the Columbus, Ohio, I also directed an episode of Undercover Boss with Donato's Pizza, and Donato's Pizzas is headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. Had a great time there. The Jane Abel, who is now the president of Donato's, was absolutely fantastic. I love that. I love that shoot. Getting back to Trump's tweet, he said what a lot of us were thinking. Should he have said that as commander in chief? I don't know, because then that goes to, that if I was a defense attorney, I would really want that tweet to say, look, the president is telling his AG to start going after these people. I don't think it ever should have gotten to that point. To me, Pam Bondi is Jeff Sessions with a blonde wig. And there's just something about these attorney generals that he keeps hiring that are just like either won't do anything, or the Department of Justice is so corrupt that they can't do anything. Or is it, and this is always my default being a conspiracy theorist, what kind of leverage do they have over Pam Bondi, Jeff Sessions, Bill Barr? Bill Barr is so deep within, the swamp and everything else. So I'm sure there's leverage on him, but he doesn't need it because he knows exactly what to do. And that's part of like the whole sort of like deep state conspiracy. You don't have to have like these, closed door, smoke filled rooms, dimly lit, talking about what you're going to do. All these people know what they need to do to make the process either collapse or move forward. It's just kind of, they don't have to have these long meetings and come up with some sort of caper. They know the process, and they know how to delay the process without, someone saying, hey, sending an email saying you need to do this, so this won't happen. That's not how, I don't think that's how it works. So is Bondi a part of that club, like the bar club? I don't know. It sure seems like it to me.
Yeah, it's like if she would indict half as many people as the amount of interviews that she does on Fox News, I would be a lot happier of a camper. I can tell you that. Yeah. I do like. I like the idea of the president publicly chastising his cabinet and being like, "Hey, let's go! Like, get on it." Also, I like the fact that Trump is showing that he sees what the base is saying. He sees what his voters are saying. And he's like, yeah, I agree. To your point, Tom, I didn't like the fact that he's like these cases specifically, and he's calling out these names, because you're exactly right. Like any defense attorney is going to be like, the president just poisoned the jury well of the United States by saying that. How are you supposed to, you know what I mean? You're either going to find a person you're either going to find a person that likes whatever Trump just said and is going to convict this person regardless of how we try this case, or you're going to find a person that hates whatever Trump says and is going to acquit no matter how we try this case. And so it's like for everybody involved in the legal system, when Trump does that, I think that it's a bad look. And FOMO TV has iFOMO has rated the stream. Hey, thanks for that. Welcome in, you and all your people. Really appreciate that. Welcome in, everybody. And that wraps up that Rumble rant. But like I said, if you guys want to hijack the conversation, and yes, Colts Walker, I do know some very interesting people. But the thing is, I always try to know people that are more interesting than me. That's the thing. Always be hanging out just one social club ahead of yourself, right? So I'm riding Tom's coattails, not the other way around. Don't get this twisted.
No, man. I'm a fellow traveler, a fellow fringe dweller, bro.
There it is. And that's what we often talk about. Like, dude, if we had recordings of some of our conversations, we got off on the Bible the other night. And I was
for like 2 hours.
Oh, dude, I was like, I'm way too many doubles deep for this conversation. Hold on, Tom. I got to get my Bible out to start referencing. But anyway, no, it's always fun. But that's the kick around. Man, I hope that you guys really enjoyed the topics tonight. Tom, like I said, I'm not going to torture you with any more political videos, but we do this in between every segment. I always come up for just a little bit of air. And we're not on the editor's picks page tonight, so I don't have to worry about selling you guys shit, which always makes for a lot more fun, laid back stream that we don't have to do ad breaks and whatever. But baby birds, you will still get your palate cleansers. Don't you worry about that. And we definitely have to wash this one down. So all the palate cleansers that I have tonight, Tom, were chosen specifically for you. I thought that these ones might be up your alley. So without further ado, guys, let's come up for just a little bit of air before we hit the headlines. This is publicists when their actors have a transformative role.
We need a really strong buzzword to promote our client's transformation in his new role. He looks different in his new role. No. He looks interesting in his new role. How about he looks unrecognizable?
Holy shit!
Like, did he lose his whole fucking mind for this part?
Unrecognizable. Can we do this? Is this okay? Wait, this is everyone when they see the articles, they're gonna go, oh, wow!
Wow, oh gosh, he looks super different.
Quick, show the press kit. Oh, yes. Here we go. Okay.
Logan Chalmers looks unrecognizable playing Teddy Roosevelt.
Holy shit, dog! Who is that? That's him.
That's 8 hours in the prosthetics chair. That's Theodore, all right.
DDL ain't got shit on our board. The internet's gonna fucking nut when they see this.
Unrecognizable.
Wait, what if the studio just casted someone that looked like the part?
But then we can't say unrecognizable.
Yeah, that's true. This is better. You're right. This is more fun. Hello! Ah!
Sometimes you gotta wonder how these PR people see themselves. You know what I mean? Where it's just like them, the journalists, God's gift to print. You know what I mean? Writing such burner articles as what Tim Walz had for dinner last night. And you're just like,
how Tim Walz is the new face of masculinity in America.
I remember that. Anyway, what's the meta? Oh yeah, iFOMO. What's the meta on how to get in favor with the editors? Well, I'll tell you what, man. And this isn't because I don't want to like tell you what the thing is. It's just if you hit me up on the Discord, and it's also not a ploy to get you in the Discord, but if you jump in the Discord and the link is scrolling over here in the chat, DM me over there and we can have a conversation about that. I don't mind, dude. Thanks for raiding the stream. So that's my gift to you for raiding the stream, or my thank you for raiding the stream. Let's call it that. We don't do quid pro quo over here. Anyway, that being said, guys, it's time to hit the headlines. So let's go ahead and get into that.
Mr. President, it's time to hit the headlines.
I actually thought about you when I was designing that stinger. So you know.
You want to hear a funny story about Bush? And I don't recall this, and my mother doesn't recall it either. She kind of vaguely recalls it, but we're not sure if it actually happened or not. But what we do know is my godmother, she used to be my aunt. She was married to my uncle, my mom's brother, right? So she was my godmother, and she has a brother, this guy by the name of Mike Wood. And Mike went to Yale and was fraternity brothers with George Bush. And so the story goes that when they were at Yale, I grew up in Naples, Florida, that Mike and George came to Naples and stayed with us when I was a kid. I have no recollection of it because I would have been I would have been an infant when they came down there. But I do know that they were close because when W was elected, he appointed Mike the ambassador to Sweden. And one of the I don't really have regrets, but a missed opportunity was I was working on Amazing Race, and we were actually in Stockholm, that I didn't go to the U.S. Embassy and be like, "Hey, Mike, surprise!
What's up, man?" Yeah. I love it. Anyway, guys, for this first one, we're going to head over to Reuters. And Tom, this is really the meat and the potatoes of the comment section. And I really wanted to get the benefit of your experience, and I'm hoping to learn something from you because you work in the entertainment industry. But we're going to talk about Warner Brothers fight heats up with $108 billion hostile bid from Paramount. And anybody that's new to the channel over here, when we get done with this every single night, I'm going to take all of these headlines, all of the research that I've done for the episode. Like I was telling you about the ChatGPT conversation that I had earlier today, looking up stats on Somali welfare in Minnesota, all that stuff. And I publish it for you in the show notes channel there on the Discord. So that's my way of showing you my homework so that you can keep me honest. And that way, you know that I'm not selling you a Croc-O-Chit. But the bullet points on this one, everybody kind of knows it's about a week old at this point that, Netflix offered, I think it was like $82 or $83 billion to acquire Warner Brothers, to include, I think, like all of their IP minus like a few things that had been moved out to other studios. I'm not quite sure of all the legalities of that, but it was like the bulk of their IP, to include Harry Potter, to include like some of I think that was New Line, but like there's some huge names that's in that IP, and Warner Brothers have been doing it for like over 100 years, right? So lots of IP there. But Paramount's offer complicates Netflix's bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner Brothers board concerned about Paramount's financing sources. So there's a lot of overseas money involved with Paramount. Financing for Paramount includes Jared Kushner's firm and Middle Eastern funds, to include Qatar. Trump raises questions about Netflix offer for Warner Brothers, and Paramount's bid offers $18 billion more in cash than Netflix's offer. So I'm not going to bug everybody kind of down in the minutia of the article. Like I said, I'm going to drop it later in the Discord server if you want to go through and look at it. But I think those bullet points give us enough to talk about. And I'm basically going to give you the floor for a little bit, Tom, because I'd like to really get your thoughts on this situation.
Well, there's people in the industry like myself are a bit nervous about this purchase going through. We've just seen it. I lived through it when I had been working for MGM on a live PD. And then MGM got purchased by Amazon. So things are a lot different. Well, they're a bit different when Amazon is in charge, because there's a lot more bookkeeping. It's a lot more corporate. It's a lot different than your traditional entertainment style business that's running things. But with Netflix, there's a lot of concerns with producers, directors, writers, about how this is going to affect the creative process. Because normally the way that business has been run for 100 years, you would have these smaller little production companies. Let me give you the example of the show Undercover Boss. Okay. Undercover Boss was created by, his name is Jonathan Lambert. So he started Studio Lambert with my wife back in 2008 when they did the pilot with Waste Management, sold it to CBS. It got, once that aired and was successful, CBS bought more episodes of it. So you have a small company like Studio Lambert who is making a product for CBS. And Studio Lambert is just like one of these small production companies that, are all throughout the United States, who, had produced that, you had Pilgrim Films that was doing the American Chopper show. You had Original Productions that was doing Deadliest Catch, Axemen, Ice Road Truckers, shows like that for Discovery. And so what this does, it takes a lot of those small companies all got absorbed by bigger companies like Fremantle. They produced the Simon Cowell show, not the one that he's on now, America's Next Pop Star, or whatever that one was. But so these smaller companies started getting bought up by bigger companies. Now these bigger companies are coming in with the package deal that, with Warner Brothers and Netflix. And so the fear is, when it comes to producing, content, either if it's a television show or a film, that if you eliminate all these boutique style production companies, then the creative process is just left to the network executives who have different agendas that they want to push. And mainly they just go by numbers. They're like, okay, let's take feature films. What kind of feature films work the best? Oh, there's going to be, the ones that, are animated or have, special effects in some way. All right, so let's start pushing those. Same thing with television. In reality television, when we first started, you would take an average Joe and put them in a situation and film how they would do, like on your Survivor, your Amazing Race. And then once things started to change, you had the implementation of, okay, this guy has a unique business, like Grease Monkey Garage, we'll follow him around. And so you had people that had legit businesses, and then you had cameras going and, film the process of, restoring a car or whatever that was. Then another switch came where where networks wanted to use influencers as talent on their shows, because they already had a built-in audience. And it was like, we don't want these average Joes anymore. They have no followers on social media. So we want, people that are already established. So then that is still in play right now. But the next step after that in the world of reality is where you have celebrities. So most reality shows now, if you were to have an idea for a show and you were to pitch it to the network, they say, okay, it sounds great. What celebrity do you have attached to it? Other celebrities could we attach to it? Because again, you've got a brand, a tried and true brand that's already been market tested. They got millions of followers. And there again, you have that built-in audience. What makes Netflix a bit different, and nobody in Hollywood will say this, but I firmly believe it, is with them in particular, you have the Obama influence, because the Obamas signed a deal with Netflix in 2018, and I believe Susan Rice is a member of the board of directors for Netflix. So now you're going to start it. So like getting back to what I said about the small boutique places, like pitching ideas for shows, now a lot of the shows are developed in-house. So Netflix has their own part of the house that develops shows. And so if they'll have their development meeting, and their boss will come in from their boss's meeting and say, okay, this is what we're looking for. We want to do a reality show about a cake maker. Doesn't matter where it is, somewhere in the US, as long as it's a lesbian couple and, they have kids. So now, go out and find these people, get them on tape and, try and get like one or two or three that we can choose from. And that's what we're going to do. Instead, if you start with a smaller production company, like say you and I decided, hey, what would make for a great reality show? Well, there's this guy who owns a garage, right down the street from my house. And he specializes in monster trucks in Florida. And he just has these amazing designs that he comes up with. And this guy's a character. He's missing all his teeth. He was a former meth head that's turned his life around. He's got a really good looking wife. All the characters are there. So we go out and we film what we call a sizzle reel with him. We do interviews with he and his family, and all the peripheral characters you're going to be on the show. And then we would go and pitch it to the network, or we go to a smaller boutique style production company that already has an existing relationship with the network, and we'd go in with them and pitch the idea for the show. So this merger would eliminate all of that, and all of your new and innovative ideas would come from a boardroom. And I didn't get into this business to, take marching orders from people in a boardroom that don't have, one creative bone in their body. We got into this business with the ability to create, not to be a factory worker. And that's what this would entail, is saying you're going to do this. Nothing would be exciting anymore as far as like rolling the dice to see if something was going to work. You wouldn't have films like Apocalypse Now. You wouldn't have films like Goodfellas, or pretty much all the films that we all know and love were done by somebody, by going in and, whether it's Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola, going in and say, I have an idea for this movie. I've got the script. The script is great. And then you have somebody, munching on a cigar going, okay, well, I can, cut this check for this, million or whatever. If it's going to cost more than that, then I'm going to go somewhere else and, get the financing for it, and we'll take it out there. What they're eliminating is they're eliminating someone's gut reaction to a creative endeavor, where you need somebody to champion the project that you have who believes as much as who believes in it as much as you do. And that's what they're factoring out of the equation, because now they just want to look at the analytics and the bottom line of what does well, what doesn't. Okay, we're going to do a show about, a cross country skier, who lost his vision while going across, Antarctica or something. Okay, well, the story's kind of lame, but all right, I guess we'll make it. And then you just kind of get the dreck that we've been seeing that pops up on most of the streaming platforms other than Paramount. Paramount's doing it right because, they got lucky with Taylor Sheridan, and everything that he brings to the table. But that's the long version of, yes, everybody's a bit panicked in Hollywood about this merger taking place because it's going to impact the creatives who are out there who don't work for these big corporations, but who work for smaller corporations, but still got a lot of movies made.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand as a consumer. I've got nothing to do with the entertainment business. Like I said, I don't know very much about it, and I appreciate you taking us the long way around Robin Hood's barn, because to me, like what it sounds like, and everybody can tell. I want to start off with this. Like as a consumer, you can watch a show and you can tell like what's genuine and what's real. Like people aren't stupid, and that's what made some of these original like reality TV shows from back in the late 90s, like early 2000s, like such big things like American Idol. I mean, we all know, now looking back, like how all of the singers were hand selected, the guys that were going to make it into the competition, like so on and so forth. Versus like the William Hungs, where they would let a few go through there just for the comedy factor of it. But like when you start talking about like Survivor, The Amazing Race, Cops, like things like that, it was the real hard hitting. This is like real average Joe, and I can feel it off of them. And it's like certain members of the audience would get invested with certain competitors because it's like, oh, I identify with that versus, oh man, I hate her, or like whatever the case was, but you get caught up in the drama of it because you get invested in like the real people. And my understanding of what you said, and I'm like going to equate it to food, right, is there's this idea of like the young guy can come in and be like, hey, I have this idea for a recipe and I want you to try it and see if you like it. And it could be absolutely banging. Not everything you make is going to be banging. Some of it's going to be, Somali beans and rice. but I mean, like, some of it might be, versus like these guys that sit in the corporate boardrooms, they're looking at this and they go, no, this is the menu and this is what we go to. But then they're just getting nothing but statistics on the menu that they're already serving. And they're like, oh, this is what's getting hot right now. So like push this one ahead. And then eventually it's gonna be like, okay, now this one's getting hot. Let's push this one ahead. But it's only like one small menu that they're drawing from. They're not opening themselves up to the possibility of somebody coming in with a completely and totally different recipe and just being like, yeah, but have you tried this? Like maybe you'll like it. Maybe a lot of people will like it. Nope. It's not in the corporate menu. And it's like, all right, you might be getting a lot of views in a certain segment because it's like you're pushing that, and that's what the statistics are telling you that you're pushing. But it's like in the reality, the consumer is only getting a small diet of slop, and they're going, well, I like the barbecue flavored slop better than the whatever the Chipotle slop. And like that's what we're getting as the consumer. And I think like what we're seeing from Netflix, if you go back, they were the ones that did Cuties. They pushed transgenderism like super freaking hard. Everything's gay on Netflix. My wife and I dropped Netflix back in like 2018, and we haven't been back just because I think Stranger Things, right? Like went huge for a bit, but even then, like the message is intertwined into it. They still had to make like, the token gay character and like this and that. I honestly know very little about it. I've only seen clips because I think I missed, I can't remember where I was. I think I was going through the Q course or something at the time, but I missed Stranger Things season 1. And I'm the type of person that like, if everybody else is talking about it, I have to be contrarian. So it's like, if everybody's talking about it, I'm like, I'm not going to watch it just to F you. Cause that's why I'm not a bandwagon jumper. And I had the same experience with Tiger King, like the first year of COVID. Yeah. I could not figure out why everybody was watching this. And I knew who the guy was because I'd seen some of his presidential campaign ads come out on social media like before that show went big. Right. But I did the same thing with that. Like I missed the wave of it, and I'm like, I'm not going to go back and jump on it just because everybody else is talking about it. Like I'm sure I'll figure out by context what the hell, who Carol Baskin is. And I did eventually figure it out. Right. Like I don't live under a rock, but no, it just, when I think about studios like Disney, they haven't made anything that's not a prequel, sequel, spin-off, multiverse, derivative, remake. They haven't done anything that's not in like one of those 6 categories since I've been in my 20s. Like they just haven't, right? And it's getting so laborsome to go and like once in a while I'll go sit down and I saw one the other day, a trailer, and I was like, oh, and it actually grabbed my attention, and then I was let down so hard. I think it was called The Running Man. Oh, with Glenn Powell. And I was like, oh, super interesting plot idea. And as I do now more than ever, if I'm going to consider to go see a movie, I always watch like either Nerdrotic or Critical Drinker. Those are like kind of my go-to dudes because I don't like to waste my money like anyone else. And I find like their analysis is pretty solid, at least for me. And Critical Drinker just roasted that movie. And then within like the first 30 seconds of it coming out, he drops that it's a remake of a 1980s film that had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. And I was like, son of a bitch, they got me. It was a remake. You know what I mean? And I hate that. And so because of that, that's one of the reasons that anymore, I realize that it's like, I'm 35 years old. It's 2025 and there's 150 years of cinema to go back and catch up on. Like, I'm just not even wasting my time with modern bullshit anymore. And I'm going back and I'm like, all right, what are the films that I've missed? Like right. what are the great moments that I've missed? Oh, you know what? I never have actually seen insert certain title. A buddy of mine challenged me. He's like, you've never seen The Shining? And I'm like, no, I know of it. Like, I know who Stanley Kubrick is. That's the guy that filmed the moon landing, right? Yeah. So I was like, so it's like, now I got to go back and watch The Shining. And I'm like, man, not my genre, but like, dude, now I get the hype. Now I get why it was such a groundbreaking idea. You know what I mean? And go back and enjoy reliving Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Go back and enjoy the original Star Trek film. Go back and enjoy, and it's like I'm rediscovering all this stuff. That's like, man, how did that one get by me? Like I've never actually sat down and watched the Planet of the Apes, the original.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? And Brandon gets on to me all the time because he is a cinephile. Like he can just like quote all that. Brandon is first of all, Brandon is a treasure trove of history and philosophy and
his
cinema
memory is sick, bro.
and college sports. And it's like, it doesn't matter like what you want to talk to him about. Like he can sit and have a conversation with you about it. And right. I lost the bulk of my adult life so far training to be special operations. So I feel like I have a lot of catching up to do. And cinema is definitely like one of those areas. But now I'm way off on another topic that I should have tangented on. But I completely see what you're saying. What's your take? One more thing that I wanted to cover from the article. You said Paramount is doing it right, but there's a lot of foreign money concerns that comes in if Paramount closes the deal. I feel like this is one of those damned if you do and damned if you don't things. So it's like, do I want to be influenced by the trans alphabet mob at Netflix, or do I want to be influenced by big Qatari money? You know what I mean? I feel like that's the choice that you're giving me. Is that a wrong take on this merger?
No, that's accurate. There's a couple of things at play, especially when it comes to like movie theaters. You don't have the big movie release and the box office receipts. And what they're seeing, the bean counters are seeing is you just go direct to consumer. So when you have a film that's being released, just give it to the people. And so, of course, people who own movie theaters are freaking out now. Because, if you're just going to release everything like we did in COVID, which was so successful, it's like, well, why don't we just keep doing that and cut out the middleman? And the theaters are the middlemen, but also you have studios that are connected to some of these theaters, like Sony. You have Sony theaters around, and They don't want to lose it. But the whenever technology starts to advance, then somehow businesses and the audience have to keep up with it. From like the silent movie era, my grandmother, who passed away in 1999 at the age of 95, when she was a teenager, she used to play the piano in silent movies because they'd send the movie along and then also send sheet music, and the pianist would be in the theater playing. So once the talking pictures came in, my grandmother lost her job and then went on to college and so forth. But then, like we had the whole era of the DVD. So if you're an actor and you're doing a film, not only are you going to get the box office, but also part of your revenue stream are going to be DVD sales and, rentals. And that's going to, but once you have that, you can kind of figure that in. Okay, I can, clearly make X amount of money off this. Or if, say, for some reason, there's been several films, and none of them come to mind right now, but if you give me a second, I'll probably come up with one or two that were sort of flops at the box office, but the DVD sales just went through the roof. It saved a lot of those careers.
Not DVD sales, but It's a Wonderful Life was if I remember correctly, it was like a theater lukewarm to flop,
right,
but has gone on to be an absolute holiday cult classic.
Oh yeah. And so now this next iteration of going directly to the consumer and bypassing the middleman of being the theaters, that's the model that they're looking at now. And it does make sense because, like I said, it worked during COVID, and that's what they're leaning toward. But I get back to the fact that, everything is consolidating right now. And I just don't think consolidation of anything is good. And that's what we're seeing across the board in everything. I mean, look how many, you talk about, the recipes and serving the food. Look how many restaurants have consolidated now. And look at the quality of the meals that you're getting if you're going to one of these chain restaurants. It's like, hey, this, Texas Roadhouse tastes exactly like,
it's because they all order their stuff from Abbott, dude. Abbott Foods.
Yeah,
it's all
exactly.
the same
it's
suppliers.
all Abbott Foods coming in, and that's the same thing that I see with streaming. It's all going to be Abbott Foods is what you're getting. You're 100% correct on that comparison that you made, and that's what we're going to see with streaming.
What's the way forward for the enterprising storyteller?
Well, the way forward is actually a lot better, and I think it's it's not all black pill. I'm going to give you a white pill, and that white pill is if you're an up and coming filmmaker, or if you're somebody who wants to try their hand at filmmaking, is you have a complete production studio with this thing. And you've got to, you're very fortunate to have that, because now you can come up with your own idea. You can produce it yourself. You can direct it. You can edit it. And now the, AI music is there. You can score it yourself. So that part of it, I see, as being a plus for the future. And then also too, with, being able to finance it. Because if you're, reaching out to people to finance things, especially a feature film, and if it's somebody who's not just going to grant you the money, but wants something in return for it, like, their initial investment, they're going to want to know how they're going to get their money back. And at least with this, you're not going to walk up to them and say, hey, I got the script, it's a 20-minute movie. It's probably going to run around $5 million. They're going to be like, nah, I'm not interested, because it would take you years, centuries to make that money back if you're just going to be posting it online, unless you get really lucky with the algorithms. But unless you're Mr. Beast, that's just not happening. And that's another weird rabbit hole to go down.
I was looking into that the other day, dude.
Right.
And pay attention to what your kids are watching on YouTube, guys.
Yeah, but if you do know somebody or several people, 10 grand isn't out of the question. If you're asking somebody for $2,500 and saying, hey, I'm doing this project, I really feel passionate about this. I have a audience, albeit a small audience on my YouTube channel. I just feel the need to get this out of me. So, approaching people for smaller increments of money to get something produced, it's one of those where you just have to try it. And I'm telling you, someone's gonna hit. It's like winning the lottery. It's like, like Billy Bob Thornton, when he wrote Sling Blade, he wrote it for himself because he was afraid that, there weren't going to be any leading man parts. And so he just decided, like Sylvester Stallone, I'm going to write a part for me because, Stallone was having problems getting parts. So he wrote himself in the lead role. Billy Bob did the same thing and financed, what we call it, the sizzle reel. It did one scene from Sling Blade and then pitched that along with the script, and that was the one that hit, and his career just skyrocketed. So I do see a plus side and a bright future for up and coming filmmakers, just because of the technology has made it so much more inexpensive to produce something.
Interesting. Well, I do appreciate that. So anyway, just want to call out Big Brother Brandon Doobie in the chat. What's up, brother? Thanks for stopping by. Glad you made it home safe. Everybody send Brandon a little bit of love over there in the chat. Love you, man. So with that, gonna go ahead and guys, if you have questions, especially for Tom, because as you can see, one of the most interesting men alive. I don't know if you guys know this, but he's actually just trying to get back to the year 1985. Like that's all he's trying to do. So help.
Hey, if you want to see Marty, let me know.
There it is. But anyway, yeah, if you guys have any questions for him, and as we move on, if you think of a question you want to come back to this topic, like I said, any Rumble rant all the way down to $1. Man, the conversation is yours and we'll steer that way. But unfortunately, we can't hang on to that topic all night, and we're going to move on to another one, which I think is pretty funny. So I don't know if you saw this one, Tom, but I call this segment not FAFO, but OF&FO in Bali. And that you're gonna find out. So this is over to ITVX, guys, but adult content creator Bonnie Blue was arrested in Bali and faces 15 years in prison. So for those of you out there that don't know who this person is, she runs an OnlyFans content. She is an online whore, as it were. And she recently kind of gained tons of notoriety on the internet for sleeping with what she said was 1,000 guys in 12 hours, which is one of the most debased and disgusting things that I've ever heard of. But apparently the money is good, at least for her. And I do just want to say a lot of these OnlyFans models, a lot of these online prostitutes create like just a completely unrealistic expectation for young women because they see them like getting big doing this stuff and they think, oh, me too. And then they completely debase themselves on the internet chasing that dollar. And it's like, dude, only like the top 10% of prostitutes on that site like make any type of livable wage, and like only the top 1% is making like millions. So it's a completely it's just unrealistic for a lot of women, and I think that it's a very bad I think it's a very bad thing for our society in general. But diving into this, because I think that this article is pretty funny, adult content creator Bonnie Blue has been arrested in Bali after allegedly filming adult content in the country, which has a strict anti-pornography laws. It wasn't allegedly. Good job trying to cover your ass, unlike Bonnie Blue. Blue, whose real name is Tia Ballinger, had been driving around Bali during what she calls Schoolies Week in a bus emblazoned with the Bang Bus. So Schoolies Week is an annual tradition where Australian high school graduates take a week-long holiday after finishing their final exams. Blue has been known to have previously filmed adult content during Schoolies Week. Pornography is illegal in Indonesia, where the maximum sentence for the production or distribution of pornographic content is up to 15 years in prison and fines of up to 6 billion rupiah, which is about 270,000 pounds. So she can definitely afford it. But Blue was arrested alongside multiple British and Australian tourists, ranging in age from 19 to 40 years old. The Australian tourists are not currently in custody, but remain stranded on the holiday island with their passports confiscated by the Indonesian authorities. Blue was also arrested, but has yet to get her passport back. She is due to be questioned again in the coming days. It remains unclear whether those arrested will face criminal charges alongside their possible deportation from the country. The 26-year-old from Nottingham achieved, I told you guys all about that. Her methods of inviting non-professionals to create adult content with her for free sparked controversy, with critics accusing her of predatory behavior towards young men and perpetuating misogynistic ideology. That last one was the token feminist line that they had to throw in there, misogynistic ideology. But yeah, she's taken a lot of flack because she specifically will film segments where the idea is that she's getting a freshly 18 young man, you know what I mean, and doing that. So I just think there's really not a lot to break down or analysis from this other than you can't just do Western things in non-Western countries. You know what I mean? Like there's this idea of us that she's out of the UK, us in the United States, that you can just go anywhere in the world and like we call it the ugly American and just be that way in other countries. And it's like, nope, sorry. They have jurisdiction for their laws too. And I know for instance, like one of the briefs that we got, Singapore is an incredibly clean country. They have very strict anti-littering laws. You're not even actually allowed to chew gum in public in Singapore because I guess the anticipation or what they think that you're going to do is you're going to take that gum and you're going to throw it out on the ground instead of find a wastebasket for it or a trash can. So you're not even allowed to do that. And they actually have cops in Singapore that carry canes with them, that carry sticks, and they will cane you right there on the street. Like there is no go to the judge and try your case. And when that wasn't my litter, like, no, they just cane you right there in the street. And they don't care if you're white, by the way. In fact, you'll probably get caned harder. Because like, get the white guy. But Tom, what are your thoughts on the story, if you have any, dude?
I kind of look at Bunny Blue in this incident as being like, like somebody that has like an alcohol or drug problem, and you're like, bro, you need to get some help somewhere because you're either gonna die or you're going to hurt somebody, or you're going to get arrested. And then you hear that they get arrested and you're like, thank God, maybe they can turn their lives around, you know? And the judge is like, hey, I'm going to, sentence you to rehab or something like that. Then you feel like, okay, maybe they've seen the light, because, for as many police shows that I've worked on, there are some people that are, rehabable. That don't necessarily need prison. They just need help, and they need they just have to make the decision for themselves that they need help. Bunny Blue, I don't know what went on in her past, but I'm guessing something really, really dark happened to her that makes you just like this low vibrational person, even though you're trying to, flaunt everything with your wealth and so forth, and bragging about all these dudes. But the whole pornography business and the OnlyFans is just such a low vibrational activity that it's not going to last forever. And you're absolutely right. There are so many people on there who are making like $18 a month doing like the worst things to themselves.
Oh yeah.
For some perv over in Germany. And God forbid they have kids, and, it's just, it's a bad situation to find yourself in. But I'm all for, anybody, trying to hustle up and make a buck, but it's the porn industry is just a bad industry to find yourself in. And, maybe I don't think this is going to be the thing that turns Bunny's life around, and she comes out as a crusader against pornography. I think she's going to help it, increase her brand and the other antics that she might be up to. But it's just, we'll see how it plays out. But I also think it's really interesting with this whole tax, no tax on tips, Does that also include OnlyFans models?
Does it include our Rumble rants? Sometimes I feel like an OnlyFans model over here.
Because those are tips, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
I always say no tax on tips. So
yeah, I mean, maybe you can tax just the tip.
Yeah.
How about that? No, the only final thought that I have on it is you can kind of see where the Eastern mindset is coming from sometimes when you look at it and as a Westerner, you go, is this the only thing that we have to export anymore as the West? Is just decadence and porn and hedonism and shitty fast food and consumerism. Like, the West, man, Aristotle, Plato, Shakespeare. I mean, it's like, like the culture and the history, and we've got it all. And yet it's like, what are we exporting to the world anymore? But like I like the way you described it, just low vibrational slop.
Right. Well, yeah. And that was one of the things about sort of being on the fringe. It was like, you knew about the furries, you knew about all this weirdness. And then everything on the fringe started bubbling up into becoming mainstream. And it's like, I got to get out of this. I was accepting of you people, at one point in your weirdness, just because we were all we knew our lanes out in the fringe, but all of a sudden you got thrust into the public. It's like, I'm done. I'm done, being a part of knowing anything that you're doing in that space. So, but think about what's going on right now. And I hate to sound prudish like this again, because they were fringe activities. You've got hookup sites, you've got porn sites, and you've got gambling sites are your three most popular things going, when it comes to apps. And I just don't think you can have a functional society that, puts those three, very low vibrational activities to the forefront of what's important to you.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Scooting right along. If you guys are good with it, we got our final story of the night, and this one also cracked me up. So we're going to head on over here to, let's see, this is BBC Sport. This one is also kind of an FAFO story, but I think it's incredibly funny. So 2026 World Cup Pride match to feature Egypt and Iran. All right. Very, very cool. So this is pretty funny. The local organizing committee in Seattle, of course, because Seattle is a shithole. One of the host cities for the FIFA tournament next summer have said the match at the city's Lumen Field on 26 June will feature celebrations of the I can't bring myself to say it. The alphabet mob, right? The plans were put in place. This is what's funny. The plans were put in place before the teams involved in the fixture were selected or the draw for the 2026 World Cup was made. So this is definitely like one of those oopsie, because they got the date. They're like, this is going to be your date when we host it in Seattle on this day. This is the one for you guys. And they were like, cool, we're going to go Pride extravaganza. It's going to be great. And then they're like, okay. And then they showed up and they were passing out the tickets of like who was playing when. And I'm sure some of the people looked down and they were like, fuck. and I wouldn't, and I guess, again, there's not a lot of analysis to do on this. I just think it's hilarious. Do you think they backtrack on this at all, or try to move dates, or try to shift things around? Because the optics of this, a lot of Muslim people coming in to watch Egypt and Iran play soccer in Seattle, and then you've got all of the flaming pride going on. That right there is that's a flashpoint, and pun intended.
I mean, several years ago, the Charlie Hebdo, we had a cartoonist get decapitated in there for a cartoon. So you remember that?
Oh, for depicting the prophet.
In France, yeah.
Yeah,
So
glorious
we're talking about folks, everyone should take their religion seriously,
Yeah.
but these folks take it really seriously. And when it comes to the left, I guarantee you, if it were, if the shoe were on if we were like predominantly Christian countries, if you had like a Mexico and another sort of Roman Catholic-esque country, Argentina, playing together, it would be no big deal because you can always mock Christianity, but you cannot mock the Islamic faith. So I think there's going to be some sort of backpedal because it's not like the left to poke the bear when it comes to the Islamic faith.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And that brings up another good point, and what you were saying about, it's always totally fine to absolutely shred Christianity. I mean, to the point of some of the things that they've had Jesus do on South Park, right? Or some of the ways that they've depicted God on Family Guy. And what's really funny to me is it's 2020 and they still try to pretend like that's edgy and that's shock factor. And like most of the people in the Christian community are like, I get it. Like, really? It's not edgy anymore. Christians have proved that like they'll sit there and take it. And by the way, I understand turning the other cheek, and I understand mercy, and I understand grace. I'm saying that I'm not saying that Christians should go out and start a riot because somebody even burnt a Bible. Like, Christianity is the faith of recant Christ or die. I will not, and I will pray for you as you pull the trigger on me. Right? Like every single one of the disciples were executed, minus John, who was excommunicated and exiled.
But John stayed with Jesus, right? He stayed with him through the arrest, through the crucifixion, through the resurrection.
Well, all of the disciples fled when Jesus was arrested. All of them fled, and
even
then,
John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all did. Peter was the one, remember, that tried to pick up the sword and tried to defend Jesus and cut the guard's ear off. And then Jesus said, "Put the sword away. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword." It's a famous verse. And he picks up the ear and he heals the guy before he's led away to be interrogated and beaten all night long, right? And then eventually goes into his trial. Now we know that Peter was in the vicinity of where Jesus was being questioned initially, because that's where that scene happens where, remember, Jesus told Peter, "I'm telling you right now, before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you will have denied that you even know me 3 times. And Peter is close enough to have heard that, or to be in the proximity of Jesus, because, or at least we think that he was somewhere around there, because it's all the people that were gathered around the temple at the time where Jesus was being questioned, where the little girl comes up to him and is like, "Yes, I know you. You're the guy that's been with Jesus." And he's like, "No, that's not me." And it's like, "Yeah, you speak with a Galilean accent. All the people that follow him are Galilean. I'm telling you, it's not me." And then she's like, "No, I know that I've seen you." And that's where he swears. So colloquially, like, "Damn it, I'm telling you, I don't know that man." And then the rooster cries, and then Peter goes away weeping because he had fulfilled the prophecy. But all that to say, we don't know where the rest of the disciples are, just that they're not in the vicinity of Jesus. Now, John was at the foot of the cross when Jesus was crucified. And so was James, because there's the one disciple that as Jesus is dying, he looks at Mary and he goes, "Woman, behold your son, son, behold your mother." And he charges one of them with taking care of his mom after his death. So we know that at least those 2 disciples were at the foot of the cross as Jesus was being crucified. But to say that they were there with him and never left him, no, they all initially fled. So
okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm still working on my Bible, bro.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And I hope we get to talk about it again.
You know how crazy it is that how conspiracies lead you to the Bible and spirituality and a belief in Jesus Christ. I can't quite. I'm glad that it's happening, but it was something that I never realized would be a side effect of going so far down the rabbit holes into conspiracies that's where it would lead to.
Well, for a lot of people, you finally encounter something that you can't disprove. Because the Bible is pinned a lot of times, or is slandered as being conspiratorial. I love it when people say, it's like, well, how can you even believe what's in the Bible? It's been changed so many times. And I'm like, okay, let's get into the whole thing about it being translated versus it being copied versus it being like, renewed in language or modernized, like not running down that rabbit hole. But it's like, we actually have documents that are of the original Gospels that are written within decades of Jesus dying, from the very guys that walked with him and knew him, that are closer to the death of Jesus, that have been copied word for word. And the manuscripts that we have in the original, like from the Dead Sea Scrolls, are closer in their date to the death of Jesus than the most commanding works that we have about the life and works of Julius Caesar. And yet nobody goes back and looks at the historical works about Julius Caesar and says, oh, none of this stuff is true.
Right.
The Bible's written a lot closer to the death of Jesus and has been reliably copied, since then. If you guys want to get into somebody that can absolutely run circles around me and just quote chapter and verse, because he's actually worked on copying and translating a lot of these manuscripts and deep diving into them, go check out Wes Huff. Wes Huff is tearing it up right now, and I don't know him. I'm actually in the process. I would love to get in touch with him to bring him on the show, to bring him on the pod to talk about this. But that guy is killing it right now. He's been on with Rogan. He's starting to do like some of the huge ones, just talking about how much he knows about the original manuscripts of the Bible. It's insane. But yeah, for sure. Anyway, unless you got any parting words, Tom, those be the headlines tonight. Which means that it's time to come up for just a little bit more of air. And like I said, I chose all these for you tonight, Tom. So let's go ahead and palate cleanse together. The cult that made Sleepy Time tea.
Seasonings, you make Sleepy Time tea. You don't make anything else weird, do you? No, our cult only makes tea. Your what? Tea? No, the first thing. Oh, you want to hear about the cult? We have aliens and eugenics. Of course. What's a good cult without those two things? This is our guiding book, the Urantia book. It was published in 1955. It was written by a guy who was in communication with aliens, but we don't know who it was. Your religion's so new that my grandparents could go, that didn't happen, I was there. Anyway, did you know that Adam and Eve, Lucifer, Satan, Melchizedek, and Jesus were all aliens, or at least half alien, and they came to Earth to, Oh yeah, did they all unite to build the pyramids? Wipe out the inferior races. We have a hierarchy of people. It goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, then indigo. That's both racist and not the colors we have for people. Yeah, white people like Adam and Eve were blue in their eyes. That's why we call them blue. How are blue people white people? I only turn blue when I'm cold. Also, how are they the best if they're fifth on the list of 6? Black people are indigo. No idea how that makes any sense. Okay, but why do you make tea? Oh, that's easy. Cults have a long history of making a delightful brew so that people can take a very long nap.
That's a pretty decent breakdown, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
All right. So anyway, hey, if you guys are hanging out over on YouTube, which it doesn't look like anybody stuck around this far. And by the way, guys, I'm going to keep telling you, I don't know what's going on with the studio tonight. That view count for Rumble is not right. I see all 87 of you guys hanging out in the chat, and thank you for hanging out with us this long. But if you were over on YouTube, then I'm going to tell you right now, the time has come because we're getting ready to go into the No Knock Breakdown. So if you come back and you watch this stream later on and you want to know where everybody went, we went over to Rumble so that we could continue to hang out. So if you're on YouTube, come on, be one of the cool kids. Jump over to Rumble. We can talk about anything that we want to talk about over there. But here's how we sign off with you guys on YouTube. Go with God and don't be a dick.